Hi everyone, welcome to the Theorycrafting Roundtable. I don't know what number this is, I'm sorry. I am Artesians, your pseudo-host. I am joined today by JinJinx, Citri,
Hello.
1010, Dajev. Azel will be joining us in a moment, and of course our special guest today is finally OkCode.
Third time's a charm, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Cue applause.
Hard pity.
Yeah, I am the head of Theorycrafting at Genshin Mains. If you're not aware, Genshin Mains is like big network of Theorycrafting and like, I don't know, general Genshin community. We do a lot of questions and help, so that's what we're all about. We have our own website, YouTube channel, and all that stuff with guides and stuff like that for the Genshin community.
If you want to learn more stuff about EN Genshin stuff, KQM, good place.
Yep. And then, so Jinx is like the progenitor of Theorycrafting here in Genshin.
Lol.
Like one of the
That
first.
that is definitely way too much credit, but okay.
Right. So, Sacha, Jinx is one of the people that got a lot of people into Theorycrafting at the beginning of the game.
Get me into Theorycrafting, Jinx. So.
Yep,
Oh,
same.
same
well, I'm
here.
glad to hear.
Okay.
I'm glad to hear this retired old blood did something.
Yeah, so Jinx is now retired from making content in Genshin, but every now and then maybe he'll squeeze in some time for it. And then Citri is the head of Theorycrafting at Wangsheng Funeral Parlor, where they do leaks and all that stuff. They do more, I suppose, I don't know how to really word it. They just do stuff that KQM doesn't. And then 1010 is another content creator who makes a lot of content on YouTube that mainly revolves around value of a unit, like their pool value. And then Dodger77 is obviously a world-renowned Theorycrafter, an expert Theorycrafter, if you will.
Yep.
The legendary Zajeff77.
Oh.
He's one of the few Bennett salesmen left in the world today, even though there's no one to sell it to. And yeah, he does amazing work, a lot of calculations, and a lot of resources out there to help people get better at the game. And then obviously,
I mean, at this point, it's more just existing in the Theorycrafting sphere more than making too many resources. But I do my best.
So if you're curious what Zajeff's character is like, when I was doing a birthday stream 2 days ago, someone in my chat described Zajeff as the Gordon Ramsay of EN Theorycrafting.
Oh my.
that's about right. And then
Sounds
today,
about right, yeah.
today we have
on this stream. He's always screaming.
Always screaming.
By the way, I'm still banned on your chat.
Lol.
Is that a wide hardo?
It's still the white art.
Stop hardoing.
Lol.
illegal white
Yeah,
harness.
it's just for the people who are out of the loop. It's nothing serious. There's an emote that I have in my chat, but that if you do it when I'm there, you get banned. And Code
Lol.
just really likes to do that emote because
I've gotten the Keqing
It's a
Mains
great
account banned
emote.
on there a couple times. Okay. And then last, but obviously not least, it is Mr. Code. He's one
Hi.
of the largest VTubers on the platform. He plays Genshin Impact, and he's probably one of the last few Xinyan Mains in the world.
Probably the only Xinyan main in the
my.
world.
Obviously,
I'm
but
the best
obviously,
example
jokes
of how
aside,
not to spend your money.
OkCode is I don't
It's
know how to
actually the-
describe it. He's OkCode. If you don't know him, where have you been?
Where have you been?
Happy to be here.
Actually, the first time I ever learned about OkCode was when I was doing research for my 444 run, and I saw, oh wait, someone did a like 2-man clear with Xinyan. Let me take a look at this. Their
Oh,
name
that
is
was my-
OkCode.
First YouTube video, right? Like
Yeah,
the very
it
first video on
was.
patch 1.1.
Yeah.
Xinyan.
And I saw that, I was like, oh man, cool, it's Xinyan. I'm like, oh god, it's a whale.
Skyward Pride carry.
Yo.
Okay. And then it looks like someone did just join just now, and that is our last normal podcast host, I suppose. And that is
The last
Azel.
normal. What's wrong with everyone else?
Yeah, what?
That just
Regular
means
What
podcast host? I think
Yeah.
the term you're looking for is regular.
oh my bad. There you go. He's
Actually, regular still suggests that code isn't regular. Wait, that's still accurate. Okay.
Mm.
he's the head of Theorycrafting in multiple servers. He works a lot with me in KQM. He's he's a part of the leadership in the Theorycrafting section of KQM. He does a lot of works with sheets and has recently started recruiting people into helping him out iron out the issues with the sheets for team DPS. So
Azel
Yeah.
is actually basically the ghostwriter of everything you see in the EM community.
everything, almost everything these days that you see calced is pretty much calced by 2 people or 3 people, I suppose. Mostly it's Ellie Jam and Azel. They're pretty much like the only people that do calcs. A lot of calcs.
Shout out to Ellie.
Okay. I'm pretty sure it's Eli Jam, but I say Ellie Jam because it's
shout out
easy.
to
It rolls
Eli.
off, it rolls off the tongue easier.
Ellie Jam.
Okay. Okay, so with our introductions out of the way, so yeah, theory crafting, kind of important. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's kind of just math-based, looking at detailed stuff in Genshin. Like, we do everything. We do everything from mapping out how the map works, or writing down everything we do in our library, and yeah, I suppose like you would know us most from doing comparisons on a math-based like system, but a lot of theory crafting these days goes beyond just comparing characters.
Wait, so you mean theory crafting isn't crafting theories with lores? With the lore? What?
Oh god, that was. I'm just remembering a comment on the last one of these that I uploaded where someone said, "It's a pity you guys don't actually theory craft on the podcast. I would love to see you guys talk about some theories, but instead you just talk about what's meta." And I'm like,
Ew.
so you want us to just sit together and make a spreadsheet together instead of talking about the results of theory crafting done by the
Give the
community?
people what they want.
They want to just watch us on a.
I don't know what team we
Look,
make.
to be fair,
Let's make a spreadsheet on Xinyan with codes Xinyan.
look, to
Probably
be
the
fair,
most unrelatable one.
to be fair, I generally get like higher viewer averages when I'm on Excel than when I'm on Genshin.
Yeah, I did too back when I streamed.
Me
I did
too,
too when I
actually.
streamed.
Me
Yep.
too. I remember playing Genshin one time, and I literally went AFK, streamed Azel's screen on Discord while he was playing, while he was doing some spreadsheet stuff, and I got like 200 more viewers by the time I got back from eating dinner. Okay, so to start off, I guess do we have a topic list anywhere? I don't think we do, but I suppose we can start off with meta, right? So OkCode is known for raising Xinyan, right? Known for liking
like-
Keqing and like all sorts of units, right?
All the weak ones.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Lol.
how did we get here to the point where we call certain units bad, or like how has the meta developed in Genshin Impact? Is it because theory crafters are pushing some kind of like narrative about it, and like how has it changed since like 1.0 to now? Like, do you understand the game more, Code, or anything like that?
Yeah, the game at the start of the game, everyone was just playing the game based on their experience on other video games in the past, right? Even stat building and such is around that. And as the game progresses, we have more info and know more about the game, so that changes, yeah. I mean, it is a gacha game, so, well, it's an RPG game, I guess. Every character has certain performance they can do, but how long it takes or how much investment you need to get to that performance is different, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess that's meta. I guess my definition of meta would be how much resource invested for how much results you gain back
I mean,
in
at
this game,
point,
at least.
At this point, though, I mean, we're probably gonna talk about Abyss a little bit in more detail later because we've had the new rotation. But at this point, it's starting to feel like soon weaker units will not be able to clear Abyss.
Short of
Yeah.
wailing.
Here's an interesting question. Do you think there will be ever one day where your Xinyan is unable to clear the Abyss?
unable to clear the abyss. I mean,
Do you think it's
most
close
of the
already?
it's close, but I think it's mostly because of the hitbox, not really
Yeah,
like the
the
damage is
hitboxes
there.
are.
It's just the hitbox.
To be fair, you could just play a 3-unit team and just have Xinyan and never swap into her, and you would probably still be like completely fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess.
It's
And most
just-
of the dual teams, that's kind of hard, right? It's kind of hard to
Mhm.
do two character. And then, well, I saw like a run on like I think Billy or something, the Tartaglia run, the solo Tartag, no damage taken one
Yeah,
on the current abyss. It was like,
the really impressive one that people were just complaining about how it's a whale build.
yeah, it's like when
Instead of
someone
noting
does
how it's a
those
no-hit.
kinds of runs, right? It's impressive regardless. But
Yep.
people just keep cherry picking.
Yep.
skill issues. I think there's this comment that that's really
On an iPad, yeah.
really shined it out to us, and something I wanted to ask too. It's like, do you think the statement like, oh, every unit can clear the abyss when you invest enough is like valid, considering like your Xinyan can clear the abyss, but your investment
But how
is,
much does it cost? Yeah.
right? Like how much is the cost, right? So like,
That's
do you
mainly
think
the
the
thing,
fact
yeah.
that you spend $5,000 on your Xinyan make it clearing abyss is like, oh, it's a proof of, oh, you can clear with anything, or like if you actually think it's not as
I
the person
mean,
who's in that position?
like the statement of like you can clear with any character would still be true, but it wouldn't apply to the majority, right? Like if you really like the character or something, or you have the disposable time or money to wail on refreshes to get perfect artifacts, yeah, you can clear with anything. I wouldn't be surprised if people just DPS Barbara to clear Abyss. It would just be you get like a wow, holy shit, you can do that
Vaporize
from someone
Barbara.
for like one time, right?
So my take on the whole meta and like the perspective that KQM or like just theory crafting in general is pushing for a narrative is that it's hard to realize that theory crafting and like investment levels are not linear. A character at cheap investments versus X character at a cheap investment versus a Y character at a cheap investment is completely different from those two same characters at a different point of investment in the future. And as theory crafting, we don't exclusively just work on like what com can clear Abyss 12. Even though a lot of our work is dedicated to that, and that is some of our most vocal work, it's not entirely that, but that that front of theory crafting is what's being pushed to the people. So it creates a misconception that we've only focused on cheap to build comms that can exclusively clear Abyss 12, which I think can
That's
be
probably
quite
my bad.
inaccurate.
So as the head of theory crafting at KQM, we've had like over the last couple of days some pretty big arguments over this. Not a very opportune time considering I was going into exams and stuff, but the general idea is that theory crafting in KQM is kind of split between like pushing for meta, like acknowledging that units have like these insurmountable differences. They have like some insurmountable differences in between the two. Like some units are just built different, and that theory crafting should kind of just acknowledge it and move on. And then there's other people that think that because that attitude is so stifling, a lot of things haven't come to light, and it's very difficult for something to break through. If you haven't seen it, like an example of this would be almost any Sucrose comp. The most recent one would be Sucrose with Kokomi, Zhangling, and Fischl. So it took a while for this one to really take hold, but yeah, it's kind of hard to balance between the two, and I don't really like to, set down an iron fist and tell people to theory craft what would be the best, in my opinion. So I don't know, I just kind of let it go, and it seems like the camps have just kind of separated themselves out and do whatever they want without like arguing with each other all the time anymore.
I think that like one of the issues that lead to like the split is there are a lot of reasons to theorycraft, and there's a lot of methods to theorycraft along with side-by-side opinions, but there's only really one outlet of there's only really two outlets of showing your work. It's either through like an Excel or Google Sheets DPS calc or a YouTube Abyss showcase. That's really the only real two form of like representing your results that a unit or a com is good. And the thing is, since there are many different reasons you can like create a com, some people just want to prove a com is viable, some just want to like test out a new mechanic and all. It leads to an issue where it doesn't really matter if like a com is viable or not. If you just put out like a defense sheet, even if like you state like multiple conditions that needed to make that com work, or a nuance that you cannot cache, or just an abyss showcase, which is also still like it doesn't really factor in the general investment levels or like the general skill level. It's like people associated like if on the DPS sheets that this com is good, it means that unit is meta, that com is meta, and end of story. When there's far more nuance that goes into it, that like the current representation or like the way that we present results cannot tell the whole story.
Yeah,
And
I agree with that for sure.
It's kind of like
Sorry, go ahead.
picking the answer early, right? Like the first sheet or piece of info a lot of people get, they'll just stick to it and think that it's like complete fact and it won't change, right? Because most people won't try to go through to find why is it like that or why is this team strong on what kind. They just look at the final result and it's the easy
They just want
way
to know
out.
it's strong.
But there's so many things that are not translated on a DPS sheet, right? So like Citri was saying, right? Like skill, right? Or like how hard a comp is to play. And there's also like reliability, like how it interacts with enemy AI and behavior. Right? And I think a really good example of that is freeze comps. Freeze comps, like even when you play a freeze comp variation that isn't that good on paper, it's often going to clear faster than a comp that is significantly better than it on paper, just because it freezes enemies and you don't have to deal with their AI just dodging and disappearing and fucking you over all the time.
It's one of the like lower skill floor teams in the game for sure.
But it's not just skill. Like there is skill for sure, but there's also an element of it that you can't control even if you're very good.
True. AI RNG laughs in Monster Hunter speedruns.
Oh
Yeah. I think that another thing that is like explains how sheets can't translate to in-game is theorycrafters tend to like use perfect rotations, good play. Like a lot of things, like even basic stuff, like they assume you cast your Bennett burst before your Xiangling burst, so it snapshots. And a lot of people just don't play that way, which is why a lot of the compositions that you see that we say are super good might not be the best teams for other people to play, like Sucrose, Ketchum, Sukokomon, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the harder teams to play.
Yeah, it's pretty difficult to play. 1010, watch 1010 try to play it on stream.
I don't know if you've ever tried to time a Sucrose Swirl to Guaba, not blowing fire, but it's not that easy, especially mid combats.
Yeah, but like then you have like those, I guess, like way too dank comps, and then you also have things like Pure Pyro with Kazuha, Venti, Bennett, Xiangling, where it's literally just spam skills and bursts.
Hit whichever button that's up. My favorite.
Just press all the buttons. Oh, button is not gray. Me press button.
Yeah.
Actually.
But like it's just like a lot of players are not going to experience the same kind of damage level that we have or that we're saying you can experience. Which is why a lot of the times what we say is meta doesn't necessarily translate over to in-game play.
Absolutely. I mean, that's I think one quick thing to note is that when you said something is way too dank, someone who's not in the theorycrafting community might not know what that means. But basically, when a theorycrafter says a comp is way too dank, that means the rotations are really hard to do correctly.
Mhm.
That means the
Like-
exact skill order and timings to make the comp work, like with the Sukokomon team, the Sucrose Youngling, Kokomi, and Fischl team. If you don't time the Sucrose swirls to Guaba's cooldown period properly, the comp falls apart.
They
I mean,
And that's not that easy to do.
Yes and no. It doesn't necessarily fall apart. Like I've seen calcs of like what happens when you miss it, and it's still not bad,
Yep.
right?
Like,
Okay.
But the thing
I-
is, there's a lot. Like that team specifically has so many things that can go wrong. It's not just that's just the surface of
Fair.
the things that can
Mhm.
go wrong. The fact that it's an overload comp that relies on the enemy staying in one place, right? Because you need the sucrose, not the sucrose, the kokomi jellyfish to apply hydro, but you're also triggering a lot of overloads. And so if you don't position yourself properly with your overloads, or if you don't trigger them at the like in the right position, or if you're against an enemy that just decides to move away, you lose like so much of your damage, and it makes it practically significantly harder to play.
like unlike the subject of skill level and practicality, I do want to add that like in a lot of cases it's ad hoc. It's not just because there are a certain skill floor that we can expect the people to like watch our content to know. Like if you watch our content, you should know how to snapshot Shaolin Q or Beidou Q.
That's
Like
fair, yeah.
that is a basic mechanic that is not hard to do. And I think that like how do I say it? Trust your viewers more. That
Yeah.
you should trust that like they are capable of doing the logical thing. You should not trust them to be able to like do something like Susu command Gorba's world hit 3 targets with overload, trigger reverse wave on all those 3 characters, and then electro charge at the same time. But you can trust them to like snapshot Sucrose EM or like snapshot Bennett Q or snapshot TCS. I don't think that is like an entirely unreasonable point.
So it's like
Mm-hmm.
expecting certain player base that, I mean, if a player go out of their way to watch theory crafting content, they would at
Mhm.
least, be expected to have like baseline info, unless
Yep.
if it's not their first video, of course, right?
Mhm.
So
I was about to say,
Yeah.
it depends on whether it's their first video or not, which I think is possible, at least in my experience with both Monster Hunter World and Genshin Theorycrafting, is a problem that can make it seem more unapproachable is when you start throwing out lots of terms and things like that, that someone who is interested in getting into theorycrafting but isn't yet may get very confused or feel it's unapproachable because of that.
Like that is why like I'm fully support for something of like a fundamental guide or video on like to teach the basics of Genshin first. And like
Which is
that's like the
exactly what I
yeah,
wanted to make.
that's like the
Sag.
gateway to get into there. And like I think that is one of the issue that leads to a lot of toxicity and like conflict between the theory crafting communities and theory crafting and casuals in general, is that a lot of the times I feel like we don't try to put more agency in the hands of the people we're catering our content to. We're just trying to show them the results. When I think the more healthy way of doing it is just teach them how to understand our work. And from there, like if they are capable of understanding our work, there's a higher chance they're capable of just coming to the same conclusions that we made, And a lot of it would seem more natural rather than we just like rather than it seems like we're just shoving an agenda down people's throats.
And then
that would be difficult though. It's just like
It's a really hard
depends on
balance to
how
strike as
much
a content
you
creator.
imagine parts of the player base that really wants to look super deep into theory crafting would be, because like the hardcore player base of any video game doesn't take really the majority of the percentage, right?
yeah, I was gonna spin off into
Especially
that.
in
So
a game like Genshin.
yeah, so as I was gonna spin off into that, like, or lean into it more. So code, like, what do you think about like, theory crafting? How out of touch can it be, or do you think like there's more value than harm being done? Like, by
Mm.
this type of work?
I guess like
'Cause-
my first experience of Theorycraft was just like, well, I didn't make any Theorycraft, but like I saw the ICD thingy, the 2.5 seconds, and all the elements reaction and the reverse reaction, and that was like the biggest thing that changes how I play.
It's understanding
And-
one of those core fundamentals.
Yeah. Understanding the core, I think it's gonna be where most people would stop though. Like the Sukokomon may be a little bit too extreme, but I think
A little way too dank.
getting it, yeah, like for a standoff or like for a starting point, I think basic ICD or like basic ICD would probably be where most people would stay, I'd say. Or like snapshot.
I was about to say, also, I think snapshotting is incredibly important because it's one of the big, like, a lot of people don't understand, well, what mechanically makes, like, Xiangling fundamentally stronger than, like, say, a Diluc in the same team, and it's the fact that she snapshots.
Yeah, that's one of the
And
things
Diluc has to stay inside Bennett's circle.
meaning to do. It's like just making sure we teach people. This is one of the things I realized. Like we don't really tell people how to play certain characters or to make game mechanics, and it's one of the reasons why it leads to so many like misconfusion. It's like, oh, Chao sucks, but you know the reality is you don't really know how to play Chao, which most people probably don't still. So I've been trying to make more like guides on how to play your characters. I made a guide how to play Albedo this morning. When you saw it already.
I think that's mostly talking about like YouTube audience, right? I think in making videos of guides or Theorycraft, as much as sometimes you want to make a video, but you have like a baseline assumption that yeah, okay, this is info everyone knows before, right? But something as simple as you press your E down to place something on the field and it can be broken. That you can say on YouTube and it works really well there because it's like assuming everyone knows your base information first before making a guide is kind of awkward because on YouTube, at least it feels like you have to handhold them all the way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like
Otherwise, the comment section is just exploding.
And like that's one of the things that I to some extent tried to do. I especially had to do that in Monster Hunter World because like one of the core calculations in Monster Hunter World is your EFR, your effective roll, which is basically just how much damage am I doing based off of all of the factors like crit and sharpness and stuff that go into my damage output. And I had to make at some point I realized I had to make a specific video about EFR so I didn't have to explain how EFR worked and was calculated in every single video. And I don't know. It's difficult because it's like when you're making a guide video, you don't want to have to spend 2 to 4 minutes in every video explaining what a snapshot is, how a rotation time affects your damage output. That fact, you don't want to have to explain that you get more energy for the on-field character versus the off-field character, how ICD works, like all of these different things that are important and fundamental to understanding how a lot of team comps work, but you don't want to spend half your video re-explaining that every single video.
You gotta make like
It's
a
a hard balance to
playlist for
strike.
fundamentals and then everything else later.
Yeah, so I
I
actually
mean,
have a
honestly, that's what I
rudimentary-
wanted to do originally in
Yep.
Genshin. That's what I wanted to originally do with my content, and then I kind of got caught up in I want to help people save money, so I have to character review every new character that came out, and that's kind of ended up being the only thing I did on my channel, and part of why I ended up quitting.
Yeah, so I have a kind of interesting point to bring up from here. So Kurzgesagt actually released a video about how to
We lied
present
to you, yeah.
how to present scientific information and
Oh.
how scientists who work in science communication have to fundamentally lie in
Yeah.
order to present their information. I'm wondering,
Yeah, that news video, yeah.
yeah, I'm wondering if there's any kind of sense like that in the work that we do, since it is difficult to, like you might say one thing like cast Bennett Q here, but it
I
might
want to
not.
pat artisans.
It might not
I guess
register.
you can simplify it to a way, right? It's like element to reaction have cooldown and use your buff first before you use your damage ability. That would be the two. And I guess character gaining more energy if they're active is simple to explain enough. And those would be the simplification.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that's
then yeah,
I think that's a
GC.
big problem. that's also like a big problem too, I think, with specifically Kazuha. Apparently it's a hot take according to when I was streaming 2 days ago, but I do think that Kazuha is probably the most overrated character in the game, not because he's not strong, but because the majority of the player base can't double element swirl, and if you don't double element swirl, he's not better than Sucrose. And a lot of
Actually made a
people,
video on that.
yeah,
To
a lot
clarify,
of people don't realize that.
it's
Yeah.
not that he's not better than Sucrose, and that only that when that happens, it's if there's a team comp, for example, where you're just doing mono damage type, or most of your damage is cryo, right? So, and it's not reacted, Kazuha will outperform. I think that's one of the misconceptions there. So, like, to rephrase it better, it would be team compositions that would have a Sucrose for like vape or like melt don't always get outperformed by Kazuha because of how difficult the rotation is. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to actually learn the rotation necessary to make sure he's swirling both elements so that you will be outperforming a C0 Sucrose that's doing the same role in a reaction-based team.
Or well, Sucrose also just really underrated for some reason as a 4 stars.
Yeah, it's because like she's just a lot of the teams that have Sucrose as like a DPS unit are heavily elemental reaction based and require a lot of explanation as to why they work and how they work. Like even explaining Sucrose taser and saying like, so if you hit an E on Sucrose and your enemy has 0.5 units or less of electro gauge remaining on them, and also at least 1 unit of hydro gauge, then what happens is you like actually double swirl both of them, and you apply AoE hydro and AoE electro, so you trigger chain electro charge on a bunch of enemies around you, but that's also dependent on your own EM, which means that you're both taking your swirl damage and your EC damage from Sucrose's EM damage. And also when you're doing this, you also have to keep in mind like that you have to be swapping to the right characters at the right times and battering Beidou, and it's like, this is just way too thick.
Yeah, I think
Lol.
that and like the other thing I heard a lot about Sucrose is she feels clunky to play. Like people don't like being stand still when she E's. That's the other thing. It's very
you can dash cancel
casually,
out of
but,
it
like,
so fast though. But I mean that requires you to dash cancel. Yeah.
How much does it? Yeah. It's like Sucrose feels intimidating to get into.
That's actually something I wanted to ask was Code. What are both your thoughts on Sucrose as well as like what you see as community perception on Sucrose? Because like
I don't think
it's nice having a guest like you on.
Character. I have one Anemo character build. Venti and Sucrose is
I see. I see. Yeah, because I guess that's a big difference too, is that with Anemo characters, especially swirl-based characters, getting them to level 90 makes such a huge difference because of how they changed EM scaling. That like someone like Sucrose, what is it? Like the swirl damage almost doubles from like 70 to 90 or something, or is it 80 to 90?
80 to 90, it's a 37% increase. I think.
It's a 37% increase, and like once you start hitting like 600-ish EM ranges with level 90s characters, they're swirling for like 5k plus per swirl, and anytime they swirl an AOE and there's 2 targets, they're swirling twice, which is what makes like EM Venti and EM Sucrose so strong.
And then if you swirl that thing and it hits an enemy with a different element, and that swirl elemental application causes another reaction, the EM of the character is used for that as well.
Which is what makes Overload Kazuha so strong.
You can trigger Vape Swirl and Melt Swirl and have your swirl like actually trigger Melt or Vape and get like a 25k damage swirl.
This is why people don't play Anemo too much. It's always way too dank.
Yeah, it is way too dank.
I think Anemo swirl stuff also has the issue where like it has the same issue that like electro reactions in general have, where it's a lot of small numbers popping up on screen, which is a lot harder to process. So if you don't understand these fundamentals, you don't realize, oh, I swirled 2 targets, that means I get double swirl off. You probably don't even notice the fact that 2 Anemo numbers pop up.
Generally, people just use Anemo because of the Anemo set, right? And they see a lot of numbers pop up, and in their mind, it's because it's Anemo. That's it, right?
Yeah. And they don't realize, and like they can see the results of like an Overload Kazuha setup, but don't fundamentally understand why it's strong and why your rotations are so important to make sure it works out right, and maybe even try to comp themselves and feel like, oh, I'm not killing things fast. What's going on?
Yeah, but it's also kind of like some people do it like unconsciously or do it by chance, and they just kind of keep doing it. Does that make sense? it happens
Yeah, I
once, they
mean,
try to
yeah.
random comp out, and they keep doing it, but they don't understand how it works. That's usually how I see team comps in Genshin.
Interesting.
Yeah,
so I guess
so
kind of like
casual
learning
player.
it from like instincts in a way. The
Yeah,
whole like trial and error
instinct, that's
instinct
cool.
sort of thing.
Yeah, so
Interesting.
like my question would be like, do you think, what do you do like when you're confronted with this issue, or is it even an issue in the first place, right? Does a player need to understand why like a certain comp works, or do content creators in general have an obligation to describe why it works? For example, like the dichotomy between Sucrose and Kazuha, like the single place you can compare them in is like right in the middle where that vape and melt and stuff works, and in general like the spaghetti comps in the middle, right? But on one hand you have Sucrose who can TTDS units like Zhao, or offer like external buffs and stuff like that to other units, and then Kazuha has the ability to buff just mono teams, right? So do we have an obligation to describe like the granularness, like how granular Genshin can be, or is it okay for people to continue like just dropping in, hey yo, Kazuha just shits on Sucrose, or the opposite, Sucrose is just as good as Kazuha? Is there any obligation
Everything
to
is
be more
content.
specific?
I mean, people would like to hear more stuff, right?
I
The
don't
audience.
think it's I don't think it's that binary where, like, how do I say it? So it's like when you teach physics, you can teach people Newtonian mechanics like force and Newton's third law and etc. And you do teach people like to the core, the fundamentals of that, but you don't try to teach people like the core of quantum mechanics when you just talk about physics casually, or to the amount that you use it practically. I think it's the same applied to Genshin. You teach people to the mechanics, the fundamental mechanics that actually impacts you, that you can actually directly control, like TTDS, snapshots, swirl, casting VV on at least one element. 2 is kind of hard, but 1 is something that you should be able to at least do. Stuff like that. Like,
it's like you don't have
teaching-
to be a theory crafter to consume theory craft content, right?
Yep.
The content you
And,
create is to aid, not
Yep.
to make them become one.
Yeah, like I don't think like the issue is of like the material is too hard. I think some are very hard, but the most of like theory crafting like materials are actually not that hard. It's quite simple. And I think the issue is just we haven't like found a sweet spot on how to convey our information well enough, rather than like just accepting that like, well, people are too dumb, like they cannot consume this
Oh
kind
god.
of information. I don't think that's like the thing that we should be doing, Like, of course, like it's really hard to explain to someone how like swirl works with electro charge, works with overload at the same time and stuff, to like the exact amount. But you can like insinuate it to people on like, well, this works like this, and just stops there, and like just like find your boundaries. Like you need to like push it a bit, get to like the part where it's near to the point where you makes your viewers kind of uncomfortable with the information, but you have to find that sweet spot.
I'll
I
probably
think-
take a lot of trials and errors.
Yeah, I think it just depends on what it is. Some comps you can play without understanding them, right?
Yes.
Like,
I mean, that's
Shenling
kind of the
comp,
appeal of
there's-
like, it's kind of the appeal of like a EULA comp, right? For a lot of people,
Yeah,
is
but
that
I'm
despite the
talking about-
resetting, it's kind of it's relatively simple to understand. You
I can
apply
tell you
Yeah,
playing
but
superconduct.
controller Yoimiya is
You
like the
alt.
best thing in this
That's
game.
not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the comps where like there is stuff going on, but it's not the end of the world if you don't understand it, right? Like his Shenling comp. Shenling comp is like a really good example of it, in my opinion, because the nuance and all the different rotations you can do, like there's a lot. But when it comes down to it, if you do Bennett burst, Sucrose E, Shenling burst, and then whatever the fuck you want, you'll get good damage.
I think
Mhm.
Xiangling is like the best unit to teach fundamental mechanics.
Yeah,
no
she
unit
is.
Agreed.
She teaches snapshots, she teaches EM sharing, she teaches swirling, all in one character, and that's like the 3 core mechanics, and energy funneling as well. 4 fundamental mechanics that you need to play
It's the
Genshin well.
poster girl of theory
Actually,
crafting.
Yeah, and but the thing is, you don't need to understand everything that's going on to still get good results, as long as you're doing the right order, which isn't that complicated. Bennett, Sucrose, Ling.
Yeah, I mean, explaining it in an easy way would be like you use Bennett to put down an attack buff, you use Sucrose for VV set, and you press jungling out, right? That's how most people would process
like
that combo, yeah?
that's a really
It's
good point, actually. Yeah, like
it's like how
if
you
like
convey your information.
you can simultaneously just like give out the results, but also throw in explanations. And if people like interested enough, you can direct them to like another source, like another of your video, for example.
Mhm.
Yeah, I actually think most of the require basic knowledge in order to pilot them. In fact, I've been hopping around Twitch and watching like Twitch streaming, and I realized how many people have no idea how to play the game.
Yeah,
in both
3
game
DPS, 1
crafting
GG, right?
and like rotation. Yeah, like
Um,
people would draft something like Xinyan and Rosaria and we're like trying to melt together. And I even remember like
Yes.
the streamer was making comments like, I don't think I can improve up on this team. There's no possible better team I can look. And I'm like, there's no way you can tell me Xinyan and Rosaria is your best team. But I realize it's just because they don't
But
know.
it is
how to
my
play
best
the
team. What do you
game.
mean?
well,
Lol.
you have to. I think like you have to cater to your audience, right? Like, KQM is not. Well, KQM is like it's decently mainstream in the Theorycrafting community, but I wouldn't say like in the Genshin community overall we are that mainstream, or like just
I mean,
Theorycrafting in general.
I don't think
So-
Theorycrafters in general are. Yeah.
So like
Yeah,
we should cater. So like the people who are looking for information and like actually find
Mhm.
them are people who are willing to learn. So I don't think the issue is of, well, most people, like when we say like, well, most casuals play the game this way, so it's really hard to teach them. I don't think it's an accurate representation of our audience. The people who are looking for our content are people who like want to learn the game and willing to put work into it, and you have to like at least assume that they have some logic, you know?
Well, that's also
And
why
so
I'm
like
glad
a
Code's here because Code
baseline
has.
requirement
Yep.
to
mhm,
start
Yeah.
team building, yeah?
Yep.
But
like-
that's how part of the reason I'm glad Code is here because Code. I'm assuming at least that your audience is gonna be more of a mix, and you're gonna be having, and you're gonna have
It's
a lot more of the.
mix, yeah. I have
Yeah.
some wide hurdles. I have some very casual players that just lost in 5 minutes a day.
Yeah,
God damn, Bardos.
and like that's why I
we'll
always.
have you
Chat.
here.
I mean, that's why part of the reason I'm glad that you're here because we can get your perspective on it as someone who actually interacts with like the other side of the community a lot more than the rest of us do. Like, I guess what's your
Also-
thought on this?
Also,
Do you think
like
if someone's sure, go ahead.
my like just to further my point, I think we gotta start somewhere. Like, I'll use like League of Legends here, but for example, there's like certain mechanics in League
League of
or like in
Legends.
StarCraft, or for example, that are like very hard to do at the start. But like as the game goes on, it becomes standard. Like, for example, like there's a character called Lee Sin that like you have to do this mechanic where it's called Insect, but when it first came out, only like the most insane players can do it. But nowadays, like if
The
you cannot
average
do
silver
it,
Lee Sin can do
you're the
it.
average player and you cannot do it, you consider trolling. So like
That's I think
so,
that's a
like, I
basic
think you
concept
can-
for every video game though.
yep, so
The
I think you
player
can
base
apply
gets
that
better over time.
So I think you can
I-
apply that to Genshin as well. Like if
Mm.
you like teach enough people, if you actually teach enough people the fundamentals, at one point the level of play will increase, you know, and then like the content that we put out will actually reach more audience.
I
For sure.
don't
You have to start
know
somewhere.
if that's necessarily a good one-to-one comparison though, because like one of the core differences between League and something like Valorant or CS:GO and Genshin is that they're PvP games.
Mm.
And because they're PvP games, there's not only like a higher demand for learning how to get good, so to speak, but also the majority of successful content creators in those spaces are very skilled players who understand the game very well.
I
Like-
don't technically agree with that point
I don't.
because
Yeah, I don't
like, there are PvE
It-
games that so like they are like MMOs. Like MMO has like kiting in MMOs in World of Warcraft, for example. Like there are mechanics that are like hard to start, but like it's a PvE centric games to a lot of players.
But
And-
it's still multiplayer. I think it's
Yeah,
it's
so-
multiplayer more than PvP.
But
I
I don't
think
actually
for that
think so.
example, it's more of like people can enjoy League of Legends or CS:GO World Championship without knowing or being good at the game, though. Does that make sense?
I'm
Mhm.
surprised.
But there's still like the concept of like skill and how skillful a player is makes it interesting to watch, right? But is it there in Genshin? Because I don't know. To
Yeah, I
me, I
think
don't
that's-
consider
still
like
make
the
it more-
12 like the
How
end
much
game
is like make it
concept.
more interesting to watch?
I mean, I
People do
think-
use Abyss as a sense of achievement, though. Like clearing
Yeah.
Abyss is considered a large achievement, and
Yeah.
people do
For-
strive for that. You know.
People
I-
do strive for that, but until a
are
certain point,
motivation.
though, there are
No, but that's
motivation,
a-
but not a lot of people do Abyss, as far as I
I-
know. Like from the surveys and stuff, no?
So, I don't personally. I'm not a fan of the entire Genshin is PvE. Why do you care about meta things? Because obviously you can still care about meta and PvE. And I'm actually
Yeah.
surprised from Jinx because he came from Monster Hunter, and the way I saw Monster Hunter was like one of the more hardcore PvE games. So I assume most people, even though it's a PvE game, they actually cared about meta. And so the same would just apply to Genshin, right? If you actually
So
cared to
there's a
clear Abyss, you would care about the meta. Well,
So I think the fundamental difference between other PvE games like Monster Hunter World, I guess just from my perspective, having spent 2 years being a content creator and one of like the 4 runners of meta in Monster Hunter World, and then in Genshin, I think a big difference is the fact that because Genshin is a gacha game and whaling gets you stats,
For sure.
that there's definitely a big disconnect there. Because like in Monster Hunter World, if someone's using a meta set, then they're getting faster clears. And if someone's a speedrunner, they're getting much faster clears. And like that's like easy information for someone to see, oh, this guy knows what he's doing. He's getting a 3-minute clear on a monster that takes me like 15 minutes to kill. But in Genshin, at least when I came into Genshin, I noticed there was a big disconnect because a lot of the a lot of the like content creators with large voices in the community, a lot of them are whales and they get big numbers and they get that same, I guess they get that what I saw as a similar effect to what like a speedrunner would get in Monster Hunter World, but that doesn't necessarily mean they understand the fundamentals of the game or can teach it well.
Because there's so much variation within
Yeah.
the game, and because a lot of that variation can be made up for with money, like it's hard to recognize that a player is playing well. It's hard
Genshin
to recognize,
being a gacha
wow,
game
this
is like
is
the big
well
thing.
played. Sorry, what?
yeah.
Sorry,
you-
is
The
Inko?
gacha game aspect is the biggest thing, I think.
Wait,
Yeah,
you don't think the
definitely.
more you wail, the more you correct?
Huh?
I think,
You guys don't think so?
being a gacha game is a big aspect. I think another big aspect is something that we talked about with Lobo on a previous podcast, who's a game designer at a big game company that I won't mention. But one thing that he mentioned that I think is pretty significant is that Genshin is like, it looks like a pretty simple game. You have only a couple controls. You have normal attacks, charged attacks, your elemental skill, and your elemental burst. And then you just cast those 4, and you move around. And sometimes some of your elemental skills and bursts apply an element, and when you apply an element on top of another element, reactions happen. And at like face, that doesn't seem that complicated, especially when you're comparing to some like more complicated like MOBAs or MMOs or whatever, which makes it like feel very easy for people to say like, this is good, this is bad. I think that this is how you should play, this is how you shouldn't play. But Genshin is actually like super complicated because you have
For
to account
characters.
for like, your characters have really interesting kits. Some of those kits interact in really interesting ways. The elemental reaction system is very, very difficult. It took us like months to even figure out how elemental reactions work. It's kind of like Othello, I guess. It's like easy to understand, super difficult to master.
I think it's more of like what the game teaches you and what you have to find and teach yourself, no?
Yeah.
It's like the baseline info that people have again. The Genshin as a game is simple. It's just that when you start looking into it, it gets complex, right?
Right.
But most people play fine without needing the complex info. So the complex info takes a while to reach the community. Does it
Yeah,
make
and
sense?
I don't know if it's ever
information is a lot
going
of the
to
game.
even reach like the. I don't even know if it's ever going to like reach like the majority of the community is my thing, I guess. Because like with stuff like I guess part of the reason I brought up the whole PvP thing is like with stuff like League and right as meta develops, it becomes a part of the regular community because of the fact that it has that competitive nature and it has a rank ladder and everything. And like the top content creators in that space are people who are, you know, in Challenger and whatnot at the top level of play and have that strong fundamental understanding. And I don't know if that's the kind of thing that will ever really become part of the mainstream in a gacha game. I mean, this is my first gacha game, so I don't really have a good perspective on it. It's just kind of how I see it.
No, I think it's possible. Channeling is mainstream. Snapshotting is pretty mainstream.
So-
Banner is pretty mainstream.
Yeah,
I
it
think-
changed quite a while. Yeah.
If
I mean,
I,
I think-
if
I'm
Zajev
not-
could get his
I'm
voice
not
in here real quick.
sure.
Well, from the people who, sorry, I'm mostly talking about the people who care because the thing is like there are still a lot of people who don't care about those things in League. You just don't see them, so therefore like you don't really consider them
Well,
as
like
part of it.
even like I mean, even someone in like wood tier in League knows that you have, you know, 80 carry support at bot, you have jungler, you have mid, and you have top, right?
Yeah,
like,
but they don't know
understand,
what
like,
that. They don't
that's-
understand
Yeah,
what
but
that
that's what
means.
the
They
game
do not
teaches you.
understand what that means
Yeah.
at all.
The
Like,
game doesn't teach you. So
let me
I mean,
interject
like,
real quick here, Tenten. Like, I don't know if it's okay for us to assume that the general player base is going to always like increase in skill. Like it works in other games and stuff
Yeah,
like
that's what
that
I'm
because
saying.
there's something for them to chase after. There's like role models. It's like a confluence of things that pushes the average player to go further and further, right? But like in Genshin, your role models in Genshin are content creators who are not exactly pushing you to learn how to play the game. They aren't really the most stellar examples or bastions of people like that have like every mechanic known and all that stuff. There are some good ones. Like there's some big content creators that know how to play the game. But let's not delude ourselves here. Like don't get caught in this. Like I don't think that the majority of the Genshin player base even has like an inkling that they can increase their damage more than stepping beyond pay more money, get bigger number. Like
Or get better artifacts.
yeah, or get better
Yeah, yeah.
artifacts.
yeah,
I think
which is yeah.
about the
Well-
subject about like MiHoYo game, right? MiHoYo makes content, but they don't make reward. They don't make a goal for players, I guess. All the new features and contents they add are like kind of meh, I guess. They add something new, but there's no drive to move forward after a certain point, or you hit the drive too early. You hit the goal too early.
Just stop swiping, Mr. Cho.
That's a good point actually. Like
It's like
so
the abyss, right?
there's a different gacha game called Fate Grand Order, and like
FGO.
FGO, and like I think the general player base of knowledge of like how to use their skills and like using their like attacks and stuff in that game is actually more advanced than Genshin because the story quest, so like the main core part of the game, the story quest, at the further you go is actually really hard.
Oh,
And
yeah.
you
It's
have to
fundamentally a game difference,
Yeah,
though.
yeah,
Turn-based
it's-
game is a very different audience than a action RPG
Mhm.
game.
I'm just talking about like the concept, like motivation of learning the game, like
The
'cause, like,
satisfaction
main
of
played-
reading
course,
Have you
content,
played
yeah.
super
FGO,
hard.
Ko? Have you played
No.
FGO? Oh, I know exactly what he's talking about. He's talking about Camelot. So at a certain point of the story in FGO, you literally cannot progress the game unless
you know
play
how
meta.
to play the game. Yeah.
Unless you play meta, you literally cannot progress the game.
Well, you don't
Mm.
have to play meta. You can just cheese it. Like,
You
but
can just cheese it with Uriel. Yeah.
Is cheese
You-
considered meta?
Just saying you need to play meta.
If it's
So I was saying,
worse, is it
yes,
meta?
is cheese not meta? Cheese is generally meta.
Yeah, I
It's
guess-
just
Cheese is
cheesy
meta, I'm
meta.
pretty
kind
sure.
of meta, but cheese is kind of meta, but
Cheese
yeah,
is a
you
word
have
that we
pretty
use to
much
cope. All right, it's something that trivializes like some kind of content, but we don't want to admit it's meta because obviously there's a giga chad way to actually do the content as intended. So we call it cheese.
Alright,
yes,
no
the
more-
Giga Chad way to do Camelot is actually just solo the entire thing with Ku.
No one's playing like
Googling.
500
Or
stuff
URL.
You're not playing
Yeah.
Gawain. Fucking,
I just
If the game
Anyway,
is not
back to-
PvP, cheese is meta. Oh god.
but like
Yeah.
I think again, like this choose your battles, right? Cater content towards your viewers and like slightly over that a bit. Like try to reach for some people who might be interested, but like still but like they are hesitant to get into our content just because of how intimidating it seems from the outside. Is what I'm trying to point out. Like we don't have
Yeah.
to like we definitely should not try to cater our content to
To
even like
everyone.
10% of like the player base. Like this game is way too large, and like we're never gonna reach that goalpost like realistically. But
I mean, I
I
think
think
you
if we
should
can reach
find
like
a way-
1% more, like that's 1% better, right? So
So Drew, I think
Progress.
the we that you're using is not the same for everyone here, right? Like
Yeah,
for Keqing Mains, for Wangsheng Funeral Parlor, for like mostly theory crafting focused community like that applies. But for code, and to some extent for me as well,
mhm.
And for
try
me, when I
who-
was
who
doing
have a
content
reach
creation,
into people who don't theory craft and who don't give a shit about theory crafting, I don't think that's actually the same at all.
Mm.
I mean, I
Yeah,
wouldn't
no,
disagree at all.
I've been thinking about this recently, but like for example, do we assume someone should know child rotation? Because I feel like
No.
I'm mostly
No.
kind of talking about the child versus Raiden stuff because the thing I realized is how easy Raiden is to play, and Raiden is one of the characters that you can do really well even if you unga bunga. You just kind of left click,
Mhm.
you just burst and left click, and like all your party member will have, I don't want to say no energy issues, but like a lot less energy issues. And then you can just click those bursts too, and then you just go back to Raiden and left click. And this is one of the thing I didn't realize before, and it's one of the reason why I feel like there's a huge controversial in Raiden stuff. It's not because Raiden is not good, but rather like people didn't know how to play Chio. So in comparison, when Raiden is so easy to play and perform on, they just felt like
oh,
Raiden was
100%.
better.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's something I didn't realize. It was like because I assume like, oh, people know how to play Chao and people should know why Chao is better, but that's actually not the case.
I think there's two things in my opinion that with Raiden that make her seem a lot stronger to a lot of people, or to like people who don't necessarily understand a lot of the core like theory crafting fundamentals, is not only the fact that she's easy to play, it's the fact that Raiden's like biggest issue DPS wise is that if your rotations aren't tight, you're extending your rotation time, which lowers your DPS. And I think that's a core fundamental that a lot of people don't understand with Raiden. Like they see the numbers pop up and they don't realize that because they're taking 30 seconds instead of 22 seconds to do the DPS is dropping. But they see the big numbers coming up and assume that they're doing fine despite the fact that the overall DPS has dropped.
By the way,
Yeah,
I can already see someone typing an angry comment saying Raiden is
Raiden
good.
is-
You guys are just
Lol.
being
Raiden
mean."
Lol.
Yeah,
We're not
Oh
saying
my.
Raiden's bad. We're saying
Yes.
that the perception of Raiden is higher
Way
than,
overblown. Yeah.
than her actual performance.
Yes,
well,
exactly.
yeah. But my point here is mostly like, those are not people who we exclude in our content, right? We try to teach them like what's the proper way. It's like, oh yeah, Raiden is good, but like Chao is better. I don't want to say better here, but Chao is also really good if you know how to play him. So you just need to learn how to play Chao. And similarly, like it's the same thing with Kaza that we talked about. Like Kaza, it's easy to use compared to Sucrose, and therefore there's this perception like, oh, Kaza
I
is
think
stronger
ease
than
of
Sucrose.
use plays too much in
Yeah.
here. It's like
But
how much
but should
effort
teach
or
people, right?
play they have to do and how much reward they're gaining from it, right? Like what's the result gain from it?
Yeah,
I
I
think
mean, it kind of just loops
most of
back
this could be
around
easy,
to like
right?
the beginning
Yeah.
of the question. If we're already presuming that we're going to be teaching people that either A, are already interested in theory crafting, or B, want to improve but don't have any idea of theory crafting, or in the third case, for some of us, reaching out to people who don't know what theory crafting is, aren't really interested in it, but like are kind of wanting to like get into like doing more damage, right?
So you guys time to label the titles better. Label some team as advanced, some team as easy. I don't
Yeah.
I'm trying
So
to
like,
do that.
what obligation do you have to teach people? Like or not obligation, but like what is the degree that you want to be teaching people and stuff like that? And this is like an individual answer. There's no right or wrong answer here. It's just like a question for each and every single one of you. Like, what do you guys see as like the optimal Genshin content, I suppose?
Optimal
obviously.
Genshin content.
That-
Theorycraft, yeah. It's like optimal
Optimal
Genshin content seems different. I'm pretty sure the entire player base has gotten bored of watching Abyss and Summon videos.
I think that the average Genshin player will never get tired of watching summon videos.
I've Albedo in 110 pull. By the way, what
No
about
one
Albedo later?
Wow,
Holy-
10-10.
Well, I think that's interesting
Askers
though.
mod check.
Askers.
That's
Any
that's an
Askers
interesting
around
point
here?
to me though. Code, why do you think that? Oh, what makes you think that people are getting tired or will get tired of things like of content like that?
I guess statistics and stuff I see on other channels as well.
Oh yeah?
Doing only Abyss right now, it's you kind of have to do some amazing stunts, like a solo run or something, to really get traction. Because doing Abyss normally or casually, it doesn't really do well unless you're doing Abyss with like the character on banner, yeah, and you type, "Holy shit, this character is broken?" ? And add a couple red arrows there.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, that works usually, but as in like for Abyss content, it's kind of difficult. I'm not sure how to explain it.
It's just
Goddamn.
people have seen it already.
I mean, that's fair.
Yeah, people have
just from
seen
what you've
Abyss
seen,
so
yeah.
many times, right? Abyss
I mean,
do
yeah.
change, but the perception of Abyss is kind of still the same-ish, right?
Is that would you say that's the case even when there's like a new Abyss?
Okay, so I guess recently the new Abyss giving like Magu Kenki and stuff, it made people talk about the triple Magu Kenki and stuff, yeah? So depends on how much they make Abyss, because recently all the Abyss is just like it buffs your damage on floor 11 and floor 12 has nothing, yeah? Some Abyss have like the corrosion or the low tide, high tide. Those make people talk about the Abyss content, so Abyss rise in popularity again. But when the Abyss is just
Interesting.
a damage check, it's not as popular.
Okay, so if hypothetically there were to be a new enemy that has a shield, right, an elemental shield that you have to deal with that's very tanky, do you feel like people would start caring about Abyss?
Yeah, you know, like they
LOL.
go like, why is this
What-
enemy in the game? You
what an
pro-
interesting,
this enemy, yeah.
What an
Maybe-
interesting.
Maybe throw on some cooldown increasing mechanic, you know, to make it harder.
Damn.
Sus.
Yeah, I will sleep really well today. Lots of dreams.
Yeah, but I guess that could definitely make Abyss more popular. I think the issue is just that only happens like we have a special
When
Abyss
Mihoyo
once every, like,
decides.
yeah, and
It's
Mihoyo
like
doesn't
that,
change
yeah.
the Abyss that often. It's like what, once every 2 Abyss cycles, 3 Abyss cycles. It's like that's just
Pretty
difficult.
often, actually. It's like once every month.
Yeah.
I mean, you say that's often, but when you're a content creator, that's a long
Yeah, that's a
period of time
long
to wait
time,
for
yeah.
stuff to happen.
I
Okay,
think
so
that-
it's not the Abyss, and it's definitely not fucking overworld picking videos or anything like that. What do you guys think?
Wait, what kind of content we're talking about now?
Yeah, like what do you see like in the future, right? So like right now Genshin is kind of like in that kind of weird spot where half the people are just chatting or just farming the overworld and just being chilling, or they just go play other like literally just go play other games. Like Tectone is like
It's
he's gone. Like he's playing like other stuff a lot of the time now. Which is fine. Nothing wrong with that. But like what about Genshin and stuff?
Genshin, I think the I really don't
Apex
understand the
Legends.
direction that Miho is trying to go. They're trying to appeal too much to the more casual player base would be the word, right? Because I don't think system like fishing or teapot is the reason why people started playing Genshin in the first place.
Yeah, that's
So they
always
keep
struck me as a
adding
little
more
weird.
quality of life or changes to those two systems, which I don't understand.
Oh, I actually know the answers. So yesterday I was at work and I was bored and I want to play games. And I have a Mac. I couldn't play. and I
Sounds
couldn't-
kinda
I-
sus.
I was in my office and I couldn't play games because I only have my MacBook and I don't have my computer. So I had to turn to my phone, which I recently upgraded for a gacha game. And then
Oh.
what do you know?
Why does this
Genshin
sound like an
Impact
ad?
is the
An ad,
perfect game
yes.
to play here. But no, but I'm actually serious. I was looking for a game to play on my phone and I didn't really want to play Genshin and I end up like fucking playing Azure Lane. And that's like the appeal of game like this, right? It's like if you're bored at work and you just want to spend like 10-20 minutes taking a break and you want to play something, that's the game for you, right?
Bro, if you have 10-20 minutes at work and you launch up Genshin to fish some fish, I think that's not how you go about your day. I'm pretty sure there are a better way than turning on Genshin to do some fishing.
Are you sure?
Um,
I will be playing Legoland at work if I can. But I could play
Like-
Legoland at work.
I'm not like a content creator, so I don't have like a lot of experience in like what content like you guys are capable of creating, or like content that like you guys benefit the most from, because that should be your priority, right? You guys, it's your job. So, but I think I would like to see content that has room for growth, is what I would say. Like content that you can like actually build on instead of like just recycling. Content that you can only recycle. Like if they can,
Recycling content.
yeah, like that's what I don't think that those are content that is, well, it's good clickbait content, but it isn't things that would like really be, how would I say it, provide much change to just the scene in general. That's what I would say. Like, yeah.
Providing something new or groundbreaking in content, yeah. So a new team comm and such would be cool.
I just
But
I
those
just wanna see
are
competitive action.
hard
No,
to.
I want to see speed run with drafts. That's what I want to see.
I think there's I don't know. There's like a once in a while you feel like that, and then I realize there's like a million videos that I need to make, but I'm lazy to do it, and I'm like, I don't know how you guys are finding the lack of content. Question. I guess it's different for everyone. For example, at the beginning of this podcast, we talked about how Sucrose is still very underrated, even though Sucrose has been in every single like Psyops, this character is underrated video. But evidently we can push meta because we did push Shanling. So what I figured I need to do is like time to make a clickbait video. It's like Sucrose is the most broken character. or something.
Well, I
you should
think the thing
Get
with
ready for the
Xiangling, though,
Kazuha stands to hunt you down.
lol.
They have their pitchfork and flames.
Bruh,
saying,
when
how
animal
dare
character
you
is a
say this
four-star
four-star
question mark?
character?
Oh, that's pretty good. But yeah, I mean that's how it was when
Yeah,
Shanling
just
was
put on
first
the
pushed, right?
thumbnail like Bennett
like,
over
just
D-Luke
like
and then
D-Luke.
Sucrose over Kazuha. Just like clickbait. Yeah, Sucrose is actually the 4-star. Oh no.
Yeah,
Lol.
but no, you know, like we can just do something like that, and then like we.
I
start
think a
pushing-
fundamental I think there's still a fundamental difference between like how people will perceive Xiangling and Sucrose though, because you can see the big numbers Xiangling puts out because she's a vape unit. And so people see, wow, my Xiangling's hitting 30k per Pyronado spin. This is so much damage. But with Sucrose, it's just like a fuckload of tiny numbers. And it's a lot harder for people to feel like they're doing a lot of damage, I guess.
Clear speed is still self-evident though. So if you like just see that you can clear to the same level or like just faster with less effort put in, then like people would say, wow, this is good. You know, it's not just like big number. Ooh.
I think the issue for that with Sucrose though is you really want to level Sucrose to 90 if you're playing her as a carry.
Yep.
And
Or
like as a support, yeah, that's fine, but it's hard to like know how good a support is. If you have Sucrose supporting Xiangling and Xiangling is doing big numbers, people think, oh, Xiangling is so good. They don't think
The
oh,
one on
Sucrose
the
is so good.
spotlight.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
then if you want Sucrose to be in the spotlight, you have to invest in her to 90. You don't have to have like good artifacts necessarily. You just have to have EM main stat stuff. But you still need to farm.
Heavy and main stat.
I got a fucking
Yeah,
I'm very angry. I've been on the on my
Lol.
on the
Lol.
He's molding.
No. Today
What's
today,
a Jeff
I
molding?
got
No way.
I got 5 EM sands from VV, which is the one I already had, and I got 4 EM circlet from the maiden fucking set.
But have you
Today!
tried just getting one then?
Just
Are you try just getting lucky?
Yeah, have you
get
tried just
lucky.
getting one?
Just get lucky.
Forehead.
Lol. Forehead.
We
so
all
much
have our
pain.
EM pieces.
It's it's so hard to get EM main stats on the right pieces. I still don't have a circlet or a goblet from VV. It's so rough.
What is this new emo?
Skill
What?
issue.
Which one?
Opa?
We went from talking about sucrose into the Jeff crisis. Oh no.
Oh
It-
yeah.
It's the Opa emotes 1010. It's very good.
No, the other one. The new
Oh,
one.
okay, I don't know what that is.
You talking about the Woj?
Hmm?
The wider one.
The wide one.
Why?
There's a wide version of
The onion
everything in
one?
my chat.
Lol.
There's a wide version of what?
Of every emote.
Hmm.
Okay, well, back to topic. Anyway.
But yeah, I think that's what makes it hard to see the value that Sucrose provides, because either A, you have to invest in her to make her like a main DPS or make her good as a main DPS, or B, someone else is the one that's doing big numbers and it's hard to tell that Sucrose is the one putting in work, which is why I think it's still so hard. Even if you can like have faster clear speeds, you're attributing that to like Xiangling giving you faster clear speeds. Or if you're playing Sucrose main carry, you already invested in her anyways, so you don't need to be told that she's good.
I think so.
annoying
That's like
feel.
perception, right? Of how Genshin displays the numbers. Yeah, if the damage numbers was stacking instead of single floating digits, then people would play Sucrose more. It's just the numbers.
Yeah, I think I said this
How
in
it
the
is
last
displayed.
podcast when we were talking about Electro. Same thing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Huh.
I guess like that's it.
I just kind of want to go on. Like, is there any other topics that we wanted to talk with?
I want to
Code
talk about Albedo a little bit.
Okay.
About
Albedo.
Albedo. So it's been 2 weeks since the last podcast, which is before Cinnabar, Spindle, and Hus, and now Albedo have both Cinnabar, Spindle, and Hus, and how is the perception on Albedo has changed. We'll start with the man with the insane sub DPS, Albedo.
So on Albedo, I think that like if you're willing to hyper invest in Albedo, which some people do, and then I think he's a lot better now with like the new set, Cinnabar Spindle, all those stuff. But I still don't think that it changes Albedo value as a unit that much. I still think he is a very niche unit with a very one-dimensional usage that is just provide damage, and there's a lot of characters that provide like circular synergy in a way that it just increases your entire team DPS more than what he can provide just with the DPS for much cheaper.
Hmm.
Hey,
The sad fate of a Geo character.
Lol. Cough,
Yeah,
cough,
I
Itto, cough, cough.
agree, and I think a lot of people's perception of Albedo are going to be skewed by the fact that we have the
The
Geo
Cinnabar
Rift
Spindle
Hound.
hitting for like 35k. Everyone was like, "Oh my god, Albedo's broken."
True, but yeah, like we have the Geo Rift Hounds, right? That start with 25% resistance, but when when you hit them with Geo, their Geo resistance and Geo resistance alone goes down by 65%, and like to me, it just feels like they made these enemies to sell Albedo.
Hmm.
Wait,
Wow.
Mihoyo making Abyss to sell a units?
Oh
No
my.
way.
Who would have
It's
thought?
No way,
Who would have
Mihoyo
thought?
would
It's
never.
not just Albedo.
Mihoyo would never do this.
They would never use Abyss as
Yeah.
advertisement.
Ito as well, but
A business making money with their design?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
really
I
hope.
think a lot of people are not going to notice that, and it's a little dangerous. That like, don't trust the numbers you see in floor 12 second half.
Well,
Don't trust the numbers.
if you're using
Don't
Geo,
trust
then
the
yes.
numbers.
So this is one of the things I've been thinking, but it's kind of for also taught in the content creating. But like, please don't test Ito on the Geo Wolf because that's like exactly the environment that's the best for him. But that's not.
Oh, you know
Always
we're gonna
should
test
You know you're
Ito on
gonna
the
do
Geo
it.
Wolf.
I mean,
you need
that
the
kinda
thumbnail
comes-
number,
well-
goddammit. You need the thumbnail number. You
I was
have
about to say exactly. That comes back to the whole like content creation thing, where like the videos that are popular are the ones that make the characters look best.
yes.
They are the ones that
Every-
make the character have.
You're
beat
gonna trigger
number.
me. You're gonna trigger me.
I mean,
oh my god.
people if they pull a character, they're gonna click on a video of people praising the character, not shitting
Exactly.
on the character.
Yeah,
I
dude, oh
mean,
my god, this is such
The only
oh
like
god.
there are three videos on
They
our
wanna
channel
justify their
that are
spending.
below a 90% like ratio, which now you can't see dislikes on YouTube, but regardless, like
An extension
the-
to that.
one of them
YouTube
was
is
our video
amazing.
talking about game difficulty, and then the other our podcast talking about game difficulty, but the other two are the Zhongli videos. Where I was
Oh, no.
trying to explain to people, Zhongli doesn't make your teams do more damage.
It's hard to change first impression, right? The first
Yeah.
piece of info people get, and now you're trying to convince them otherwise. It's difficult.
Mhm.
It's doable. Changeling Giga Chat.
God damn, that keeps
So
going
like,
back to
like
Jack.
the thing that
It's-
like
I
actually
mean-
triggers me about this topic though is like people like, oh my god, there's like really vocal minorities inside the Genshin community that amplify like really hard when you make these type of videos.
Mhm.
So like if you like content where it's just like a bunch of clickbait and like the stuff is like unrealistic, but then they release the video as like informative, right? You've automatically just poisoned the well on discourse about this unit, because anyone that is like counter to it has to overcome like seeing those big numbers. Like they see like people who watch these videos see it as like absolute proof that the unit that they're looking at is good.
Rise in my entire content creator
And,
career.
yeah, and it isn't until someone's burned by one of these videos that they stop doing it, or if they don't get burned by, or if they do get burned by it, instead of going to like Theorycrafting and find out what went wrong, the other thing they'll do is think, yo, the difference is money. I just need more cons or refinements on my weapon.
Yeah.
That's
I
it.
just need the
And it is-
5-star weapon.
It's so toxic. You don't even understand. It is impossible to reach out to these people once they get to that
Rise
point.
in my entire content creation
Like-
career.
And I think the biggest example of that is what happened with the initial Raiden release, right?
Mhm.
Because Raiden has such a big power gap between C0 and C2, and that a lot of people were stuck in the initial hype, pulled for her, and they were like, well, I'm disappointed by what I have, but her C2 is really good.
Now they move to C2.
Like,
Dolphin bait.
I
Just get C2, yes.
like I actually like Raiden is a really cracked unit, but like people think she's cracked for all the wrong reasons. At 2-0, like people keep trying to like go this DPS build and then like wonder and then just go like down. What's it? You say it's a chat where like, well, I don't do enough damage. I just don't have C2. Better get C2. But she's still very good at C0. She breaks energy barriers. She creates like synergy between units that should not have synergy with each other
Mhm.
out of like nowhere. And like
It-
I think sometimes it's just like people want to shift their perspective on like characters.
Man, I
is
love
like-
Overbake
going
Sunfire
to
Gene so much.
Mhm.
It's so fun.
Mihoyo's how they're selling their
Uh-huh.
incomplete characters or something.
Lol.
It's
Other
like,
people get paid by miHoYo to sell character.
yeah. Wow.
I mean, like,
Oh,
real
no.
real talk though. Like, I can't say whether or not that's a thing, but regardless of whether or not there is any kind of paid sponsorship going on, the reality is that content creators who make their full-time career out of this are monetarily incentivized to hype up characters
Mm.
and to showcase these characters and talk about how they're strong, because those are just the videos that are more successful.
Yeah.
And
Once again,
you
it's
can
like,
combine that with the popularity of pulling videos. So you're also incentivized to be you're double incentivized to be pulling for multiple constellations, high refined 5-star weapons and everything like that.
Mhm.
Like, the reality is that like the kind of community that is around Genshin as a gacha game just monetarily incentivizes you to produce that kind of content.
gacha game is kind of synonymous with spending money, though. So it's kind of
Yeah.
hard to look another way.
Pick 7.
But I think it's not just the like content creator part of it. There's also like the personal part of it, where when you spend money on a game,
Mhm.
you don't want to admit to yourself, well, I just wasted money. Like,
Yeah,
very
of
often.
course.
Oh,
Of course.
exactly. Especially with it costing so much to get a single
Buyer's
5-star,
remorse.
up to $300.
Buyer's remorse, yes.
Yeah, and you'll try to find ways to justify that spending, and I think that's where a lot of content creators fall, or like fall victim to unintentionally overhyping unit because they actually think what they're saying is true
Based on
because
different
they're
perspective
trying to
and
justify their
experience.
spending.
I'll be
Um,
honest.
I think it's more of like the poll videos get popular as people watch is a character good video or not after they poll the character themselves, and they would only like to shower themselves with good good facts about their characters rather than you're not gonna go and try
Cough,
to
cough,
see
my
your
Zhongli
polls and
video.
shit. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious about that, Suja. I wonder like how many people make content based on things that they thought was true but not true, and how many people like actually make content for the purpose of views, like aka like pure clickbait. It's like they know it's not true, but they continue to do it anyway because they know they get more views.
I'd like to assume that the vast majority of people, are actually believe the things that they are saying.
Yeah, I think
I don't think that
I
people
hope so.
want to intentionally
so.
deceive people. Yeah.
I think it's not that they intentionally deceive, more that they know that they might be intentionally deceiving, but they don't really care.
That's also possible. Yeah.
Like they know it's a possibility, but they think it's too much work to worry about it.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
that
to be
was-
fair, yeah. Jinx,
That
you
was part of what made like when I was doing YouTube full time so stressful, and why I ended up focusing so much on like doing character evaluations as fast as possible to hopefully save people money, was the fact that I felt like if I'm making a statement in a video, I want to make sure it's mathematically correct. So I had to put in so much work into trying to do a full mathematical character evaluation before I actually made the video of it, despite the fact that if I were to put out just here's my first impressions, oh my god, this character is really good on the first or second day, I'd probably be making 2 to 3 times the views, but with significantly less work involved.
Yeah,
And
I think
Pull the character,
was-
do a bit with that character, upload immediately, profit.
yeah,
Well,
like that
actually-
was
mastered.
that was what
One-
made it
one of
so difficult for me.
Yeah, I mean, but that's honestly one of the things that makes me really happy is like it's no secret that I help Xyrox with his videos.
Sure, yeah.
And like he used to feel that pressure to upload as fast as possible after a character release. And like to some extent, like
It's still a thing though.
everyone does, right?
Yeah.
But because like his information is like he puts work into making sure his information is accurate, he's reached a point where people trust him for accurate information, and because of that his guides will still get the traction even if they're posted a day later than the other guides.
Built an image, yeah?
Yeah, exactly, right? He built a reputation as reliable guides. And like that makes me so happy, because it means that there's people that wait for the reliable guides.
Mhm.
By the way, this is statistically proven, but if you upload before Xyrox, you will get 20 times more view. I'm not even.
Yeah, I was talking to Brax.
Yeah,
I was
no,
talking to
that's-
Brax about that. He was like,
Yeah,
"Yeah,
that's
literally, it's just
absolutely the
game of
case.
uploading before him." Yeah,
Which was just a challenge that I heavily ran into. That and the fact that I didn't want to do any kind of theory crafting based on leaked information, even if I had to just adjust numbers afterwards. So I wasn't able to. I had to basically start from zero as soon as the character came out. But yeah,
Mhm.
it's I don't know.
Yeah.
It's difficult when this is your job, and so like it is a lot more difficult to I guess have, I don't want to say the integrity of, because that has connotations, but it's hard to it's very difficult to how do I want to say this?
You're
heavily incentivized to
future-
not you're heavily incentivized to not have to necessarily put in the work to make sure everything is accurate, or you're very heavily incentivized to not think about those kinds of things when this is your job and you need to pay your bills at the end of the
Yeah.
day.
I mean, yeah, content.
The incentive
Monetary
systems are
incentives-
backwards.
Monetary incentives are often looked looked at like, wow, this is an unethical reason to do a thing. But like, that's your future. That's potentially your children's future, your loved one's future.
Yep.
And so,
Okay, to think.
like, it can have negative connotations, and like, but like to some extent, it is still understandable, right?
Oh, this is going a very way too dank topic. Do we want to?
Yeah.
This is going to like
Yeah, this is going.
Yeah,
Cool.
sorry,
I mean-
let's shift off.
No, it's fine. I think it's cool to know. I mean, and there's like a certain thing I want to input. I'm just not sure if I want to. It's kind of like.
I mean, that's
going
fair.
too dark.
Mm.
It's like, yeah, life advice. Okay, I guess I'll
TED
go with that.
Talks.
Like, it's pause.
10
It's pause, but,
life
like,
advice
oh,
time.
when I look at Syos's video and I'm like, he doesn't put sponsors on his video, he's fucking losing like 5-digit money every single video. But you guys probably like,
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
I don't actually
100%,
know, but like, but the thing is like, if you think about it for his perspective, it's like he can go so far with the money, like either investing, like paying off university loans or something like that. Like he will go so far with the money, and I feel like his viewer wouldn't mind. But like, it's really hard to, and I do it too. It's like sometimes like when I have a sponsor's offer on the table, it actually like feel like really bad to turn it down because there's so much money left on the table.
Yep, 100%. That's something we ran into too.
Oh. The
Anyway,
only thing I
yeah.
turned down are some crypto stuff.
I mean, good.
Okay,
but-
yeah, good.
There's no NDA on this, so I can talk about it.
Lol.
I heckin' love NFTs, bro. That's
Oh my god.
that's a
dude.
joke, by the way.
Lol.
Just gonna screenshot your art real quick.
Oh,
Oh,
god.
no.
Okay. Since Senten is leaving in about 20 minutes, we've kind of exhausted our topics, but we can still jump into anything that you guys want to ask.
Wait, we didn't actually talk
Um,
about Albedo. Oh, we did, right?
We did. I mean, he's not
Yeah.
any different. He just does a little more damage for now. Nothing too crazy. Okay.
Wow, okay.
So, we're gonna do questions now
Well-
for like about 20 minutes while Tenten's gonna.
Well, I guess
no,
real
that's
quick,
okay,
I
right?
wanted to add, since Code is, you know,
Yeah, since
is
Code
the
is
guest
here.
on here, and we have gone through a lot of effort to get Code on the podcast. While you're here, Code, is there any topic you want to talk about, especially since you have, you know, a whole bunch of math nerds sitting here right now? Is there anything that you're interested in talking about or asking us or
I know
discussing with
Code
us?
used to watch the KQM stream back when I streamed at like literally the most ungodly hours.
Lol.
3 a.m. in the
It's hard
morning.
for me to catch a lot of people's stream.
I was gonna ask, what's the best Xinyan build right now?
Oh my.
What's the
Best
best
Xinyan
Xinyan
team,
build?
calm Omega low.
Best
Oh
thing
my
in
lol.
pub is you run her with Chong Yoon and then you apply cryo on your autos.
Oh no.
What
Wait,
no.
are you sure
That
the
is
best-
cryo
Raise
Xinyan.
Xinyan? Yo.
Are you sure the
Oh,
best
true.
Xinyan con is not Xinyan and then Bennett Xingqiu Xiangling?
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
It's actually
Lol.
just another national.
Do we?
Oh,
Oh, I guess if we don't have a topic, we can talk about this one. But like, unironically speaking, Bennett Xingqiu Xiangling like fixes every character. Like, if you have a character that you like and it sucks, just run Bennett Xingqiu Xiangling as your free sub DPS.
Yo.
Yeah, and leave your
it's-
favorite character in the
official
spotlight,
beta
yeah.
Xingqiu.
Or official beta, and it's probably a better way than playing the actual character.
Mm.
We had this
Oof.
recently. We have this map recently showed
Supports
up by.
impact.
We have this map recently showed by Jaystern, but because you can use 4VV on Xiao to swirl Pyro, doing Xiao Bennett Xingqiu Xiangling could be better than just playing actual Xiao.
It's not
It
Xingqiu,
wasn't.
it's
It
official.
wasn't Xiao.
But,
It wasn't Xiao Bennett Xingqiu Xiangling. It was just
Oh, really?
Xiao Bennett Xiangling and then official.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Because you can't
I think they
proc
did the counts with
Xingqiu.
Albedo.
I can proxy shows. All right,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, something like
how
that show you.
how dare you attribute that to Jaystern when I'm the one who told him to do those counts?
SMH.
Oh,
Oh well.
But he did the
SMH.
actual count and he
Yeah,
showed
he
me
did
the
the
count.
work.
Okay.
Okay, but I'm too lazy to do them.
Lol.
Yeah, Ado. That's why I have Ado.
How
I have
dare you
exams,
attribute
10-10.
how dare you attribute credit to the person who actually did the work?
Lol.
But yeah, that's just a fun fact, guys. Xiao, best way to play Xiao is not actually to not play Xiao.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
but
mean,
you, like that's somewhat misleading because Xiao is doing a lot of work in that team.
Oh,
It's true.
he provides
you mean
4
this-
VV. He provides a lot of damage.
Yeah, he
Yeah, but
provides
basically-
4 VV. He batteries Xiangling with the Favonius lens. He does a fuck ton of damage.
You do need an R5 Fab Lance though, or a
Have you
higher
ever
5 at
tried?
least.
So have you ever tried to see how far you can push a Xinyan clear?
How far can you push a Xinyan clear?
Like if you
the
put free
fastest
actual,
possible?
yeah, if you put like free crack character in your party of your Xinyan, do you think you can clear it in like speedrun time?
Yeah, but like that would probably just be Xinyan there hitting ult here and there, and it's gonna be like Kazuha Bennett shenanigans.
Yeah, but Xinyan did the work.
Just let her ult to finish them off, and that's all she's doing, yeah?
You can just close your eyes and pretend that Xinyan is doing work, and it's good enough.
Yeah, she provided a little barrier to increase my Kazuha physical damage.
She still hit a
On
big
Bennett
number.
C6 for some reason.
She still hit a big number.
Yeah, I think while it is true, like yeah, you can make a lot of characters better with Bennett, Xiaoming, Xingqiu, it's still like I don't think it's honestly that much better for a lot of like main DPS characters because miHoYo is generally pretty good at designing like one character to work well with another character. Like I'm not going to speak on Itto's kit or anything, but they've clearly designed him to work well with Gorou. They designed Sara C6 to work well with Raiden. So you still have those like team synergies that you can take advantage of without necessarily having to resort to Taser or National in order to make your characters good. It's just sometimes characters just don't have synergies. And in those cases, you just play National. Like I was playing Razor National a couple days ago in Abyss. Still 36 star. It was pretty fun. But yeah, it's just like some characters you kind of just need to prop them up with National or Taser.
Two team comps maybe sometimes plays a deal there because you need two teams for Abyss, but usually just one National, one comp, and the other, yeah. But for the majority of the player base, I think they just have two DPS really, and put one on each team with a healer.
That's what I used to do. I fucking used to do that.
Yeah,
I'm sure everyone did.
Yeah, I think that's also like a lot of the reason why Ganyu is good. I think there's kind of a trend, I guess, in the TC community. It's like, oh, Ganyu is overrated. Ayaka does more damage. I think that's a message that some people are saying. And while like, yeah, it's probably true that Ayaka just maybe flat out does more damage. The thing about Ganyu is you can just solo everything with her. You just need her and like
One
Taio
other
units.
or
character,
Chi
yeah.
Chi or like literally any healer, and then you can like get to a like very large like proportion of your damage potential without needing any supports. Which is part of what makes Ganyu so good. You don't need anything else. You just need Ganyu. You can solo things. And then like other teams, it's like, yeah, you can run National and deal a ton of damage. You can take advantage of those team synergies, but for a lot of players, they don't know how to. And Ganyu is just super good for them. Not saying this because of a Ganyu possible rerun or anything. Just saying it.
I've already committed that when the Ganyu rerun happens, I will absolutely make a video about her because I am a huge Ganyu stan.
Oh.
We like Ganyu. We like Ganyu. We like Ganyu.
Again,
I
right?
think she's in a
Investments
pretty-
versus reward.
She's in a pretty interesting spot right now. Like a lot of like
Not as
the
good as
current
this
like
one, too.
popular comps doesn't actually include her anymore, but I still think she is pretty up there. She's still on top, but like she has a lot of talk around her.
Always be.
I mean,
As you get
seen
better at
her
the game, you
picks
need
of
her less,
posts?
but yeah.
Probably a topic for a next podcast. How about Ganyu?
Oh no, guys!
Yeah,
hitting a
I'm down.
300, her hitting like a 250,000 melt shot is
it's
pretty good.
satisfying.
it feels it gets those good brain chemicals going, you know.
There's
Have you tried Melt Bennett?
definitely a different topic, but there is a lot about Ganyu that makes her strong. I feel like the whole thing with the whole TC community saying she's overhyped, especially compared to Ayaka, is when you look at like absolute power ceilings, she's still up there, but she's not necessarily the best. But when you factor in when you factor in her flexibility, how easy her teams are to build, and how easy it is to build hyper carry comps around her for
It's kind of
resource
hard to
for
mess her
artifact
up as well,
efficiency.
right?
I think, like,
execution-wise.
at the highest
As
level,
long as you can, as long as you can land shots, and then on top of that, her best 4-star weapon is a craftable 4-star weapon, which is a really big factor for people who are free to play or low to play.
I think this
Like,
is my
at
like
Roundtable-
least favorite topic for theory crafting of all time. Like judging how good a unit that we know is good is. Like
That's
people
totally
like the
fair.
people who like don't do meta, right, will get into this argument, and people who are like for the meta will get into this argument, like no matter what. They'll say
then
the
there's,
exact same things, but in a different
Yep.
way. Like one side
Yep.
would be like, yeah, Ganyu's great, but like she's kind of dog shit compared to like, oh, this new stuff we found. But like it's completely hyperbolic, so it baits people into like people who like appreciate Ganyu now, like, oh, but she's like so easy to play or whatever, and then like this argument gets so drawn out. It even happens with Venti and Theorycrafting. It's so fucking. I hate it so much. I hate it.
A lot of downplaying.
I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
like at like the highest level, like Freeze Ganyu use a lot of expensive units like Venti, like Morgana is like the highest level of Freeze Ganyu, right? Morgana and its variations, and so that on that side you use a lot of expensive units, but it's easier to play. While like on Melt Ganyu side at the highest level, you need to be really good at getting all your shots out, getting all your melt shots out, and like it's hard to play there. So, oh, how I say it? It's unappealing at the ceiling for Ganyu, but anywhere below that ceiling, she's still very good. I don't see a problem with her at all.
I mean, this is a
Yeah, I
topic
agree.
for another time when Code isn't here. Like, this is a very deep-rooted theory crafting topic.
It's a way
Oh
too
my.
deep.
Yeah, it's a little
Way
way
too
too dank. Like we will actually probably like get into an argument about it. Okay.
Lol.
I wanna before 1010 has to leave like suddenly. I want to say thank you to everyone for joining us today. Thank you Azel for showing up. Thank you OkCode for finally having a time in your schedule to join us today.
Yeah, you had to
Thank
pity
you.
my weapon banner twice. No worries.
Thank you, Jinx. Thank you, Citru. Thank you, Zada. Thank you, 1010. All of you guys for joining us today and offering your insight and your questions. So for the next like 9 minutes or so before 1010 leaves, I want to do questions, and then I'll let anyone that wants to leave or needs to leave just go. And then if you want to stick around for more questions, you can. Otherwise, feel free to leave and keep streaming or whatever.
I'm gonna run now. Bye, chat. Bye, everyone.
Bye, Citri.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
Citri.
Bye.
Actually, I'm curious mostly for Code. Like, what made you decide to whale in video game? Because I can never understand whaling.
Wailing. It's like,
Whales are not human beings.
oh
10,
my
10.
god.
Lol.
I don't want to like talk about how monetization in video games work, but wailing in video games, I guess.
Are you a victim of the gacha system? Is big gacha
it's-
after you?
Well, it's weird. Like, I used to only play MMORPG or games that requires me to play for hours and hours on end. And when I gotten busier, I tried to play some mobile game, and I got like to a gacha game 2 years ago. And I think that's where it started. It's also when I started streaming as well. And now I'm just playing full-time video games again. It's weird, but time. Right? I started whaling because of lack of time to play video games back then, but now I'm whaling even though I have time. So I think it's a problem.
He's a victim
mean,
of big gacha. Oh, no.
I'm a
Did,
victim.
did the
Oh,
whaling
no.
start? Did the whaling starts before or after you started doing content creation, though?
Before I started doing content creation.
Okay.
See,
Troll despair.
Troll despair.
Why is
Troll
Arhonia chat
despair.
spamming the Epic 7 incident?
Oh no.
Oh no.
because
no.
Epic 7 is a whales game. Actually, I have no idea. I've never played it.
Getting characters in E7 is dirt cheap. You can even buy the battle pass for free.
Oh,
You
wait,
can get
what?
any character you want, really, but the hard part is just gear farming.
You've ever
I
considered going free to play in Genshin? Like making a second account?
Well, if I'm making a second account, I would have to I'm not gonna farm all resource on the map on 2 accounts.
Yeah, no,
not?
it's more
Oh,
content.
God.
It's more
Oh
content.
god, I think Shadowspy would be picking up like 200 violet grass every 3 days, but it's weird. Like sometimes I treat Genshin as like a just chatting game as I just farm resource around the map. I've gotten to the point where most of my resources are 9999 now.
Apex Legends.
Man,
So it's like, yeah, pain.
It's time to become Apex Legends streamer.
Oh my.
Yeah, so if you
LOL.
guys have a question for any of us and you want it to be specifically answered, or if you want it to be answered by all of us, tell us. Ping the person you want at the end of your message. I'll read it out. And you guys can feel free to look at questions in your own chat and stuff. I don't mind.
Mm.
I'm not looking at my chat.
wow, rude.
Me neither.
I'm looking at the Y
Not
heart.
true.
I don't have a
streamer.
chat. I'm just
That's
doing
fair.
weird Abyss comps.
Someone in my
background
chat
right now.
asked you, how did you become a VTuber?
Huh?
Yeah, how did you become one of the biggest VTubers on the
How did I
platform?
become a VTuber? I mean, I'm still PNG, but I guess next year.
But you're in the top 10 most watched VTubers.
I don't know how that happened. Holy.
I remember
Yes.
Code asking me on stream, like while I was streaming and messing around with my PNG tuber, how'd you set that up? And then the
Yeah.
next stream, he turned it on and he was messing around with his emotes. And like every time he talked, the Diano emote would play and it would just spin.
The start, yes. That would be the start, yeah.
Are you responsible for Code being
I-
one of the biggest?
I made, yeah, I made
Oh.
OkCode the biggest VTuber.
You made OkCode. The biggest VTuber, yes.
That'll pay off the 2 weapon pities. Copia.
Oh my.
Lol.
Weapon pity smoge. I used to have such good luck with the weapon banner, and then I lost like 3 of them in a row.
How healthy is learning meta in a game?
It's up to you, I think.
It depends on how you define a game, right? Because sometimes learning meta, you will treat the game not as a game anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think
Yeah, it definitely depends on the person for sure.
I think it becomes
Yeah.
unhealthy when you have like a hyperfixation on it and you don't really enjoy the
Yeah.
game anymore other than just
Yeah.
for learning the meta. Or you go around
Oh no. He's
or
broken.
you go around like professing meta to people who literally don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the
It's when it becomes a
meta
toxic
versus,
thing
like,
either for
waifu
yourself or your
player
interactions.
right? It's like some people play for meta, some people play for waifu or like voice actor and stuff. It only really gets toxic when you enforce your style of play on another when they don't like it, right?
Yeah, I think like when you start berating people for not playing meta or think you're
Yeah.
superior for playing it, it becomes
Oh yeah, for sure.
very bad. But meta in itself is not toxic. Like the
Yeah.
meta, like theory crafters don't like go actively like just looking for the meta, right? Like things like Sucrose with Kokomi, Fischl, and Chongling show up because someone is interested in something, and then they're like, wait a minute, how much damage does this do? They do it. If it turns out good, then that's fine. It's meta, but no one's really like looking around with a magnifying glass. How do I do literally the max amount of damage ever? It just
The chat so spammy.
it just happens, you know. It just happens, and ease of use is a big thing too. I mean, like metas in like other games appear, even if they're not like the most efficient thing. They're just efficient enough, I suppose. And I guess that's like it just like I guess that applies to everything that you do with theory crafting. It just has to be enough, right? Why did your chat asking me about Dendro?
Andrew Sasuke.
We don't know anything about Dendro. I don't know. Whatever happens with it should be fun. Be cool. You guys talk about C6 Bennett and the stigma around him? Are you a C6 Bennett user, Code?
Yeah, he was my
I am
first C6
currently-
character. in
I am
patch
currently
1.0.
using C6.
I know Zajev probably has some thoughts on this.
Yeah,
Hello.
I'm currently 6 resistant books away from triple crowning Bennett, and I'm considering activating my C6 once I get him triple crowned.
No.
I have C6.
No.
Doesn't
Bennett,
crowning Bennett
'cause I
gives you
stopped
like
being a
40
coward.
more attack?
It gives you, I want to say like 50. Well, I don't remember. I did the calculations. I did the calculations on this at some point.
It's not about the
as-
attack, okay? It's about
it's
the
about
message.
as much of a damage
It's about the
increase
prestige,
as,
yeah.
like a third of a
About the
talent
flex.
It's
for-
about the flex, yeah. Imagine
Yeah.
crowning a character and their avatar appears different on your, name card or something. You have a border around it. People would crown character like crazy.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But yeah,
Let me prestige my characters and reset them to level 1.
the C6 Bennett is like, when it's good, it's pretty good, but when it's bad, it completely
It ruins
fucks you
the comp.
over. And so, if you know what you want to do, if you know what comp you want to play, and the comps you want to play aren't completely screwed over by C6 Bennett, it's definitely something you can do. But because, they're going to release a lot of new units in the future, right? They release new units. That's what gacha games do.
Yeah.
It's very possible that a unit in the future comes where you want to play them with Bennett, but C6 ruins the comp. And if you do it, you just have to accept that if that happens, you fucked yourself over.
Yep.
And that's why
And I
I
have
don't like
C6 Bennett.
recommending it.
I've accepted that.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, if you want to do it, that's completely fine. And there's some people
But
who are
also
like,
the
yeah, do
vice
it, go
versa
right
can
ahead.
happen if you use that logic, no?
Hmm?
If you use that logic, the vice versa can happen. The character could work better with like a C6 Bennett in the future.
And then you can activate it.
Yeah,
That's
stuff
true.
like that, right? So
But you
it's more
can't
of like
deactivate it, right? You can always go. It's a one-way street. You can always go down the road, but you can't come back.
All global constellations when Mihalia.
that would be great.
All
Yeah.
global constellation.
I don't think they will though.
I-
I think any gacha game would actually toggleable imprints or constellation.
The thing I don't understand is why they wouldn't do it.
I
Like from a monetary perspective, I can only see it increasing their revenue to add toggleable constellations.
I talked about it with Cleeful at some point. And he
Just
had,
make
he
it
had
so that
some-
you have to get C7 to toggle constellation, like an
True.
option.
But yeah, Cleeful had what I thought were some pretty good points on like why it's not just a black and white thing that you should make toggleable constellations, which is
Sure.
basically just things that present you with choices are more interactive to people than things that are just straightforward. Right? That's
Sure.
what it basically boils down to. What I would like to see instead of just a toggleable constellation is having a resource, right? Like a crown, right? You can call it, I don't know, right? So usually they're Stella Fortuna with whatever the name of the constellation is, right? You can have an empty Stella Fortuna as like a resource you can gain, or you get to rebottle one of your constellations if you so choose, and that consumes your empty Stella Fortuna. And that way, it wouldn't be toggleable. It would still be a choice that you have to make. But if they release units in the future that have anti-synergy with things that you've already done, you can undo them at least. But it's not like a thing that you can swap between. There's still a choice to be made, which is that's how I would like to see a system like that implemented if they were to decide to let us deactivate constellations.
Oops.
Speaking of that new resource, remember Dust of Azov? Like they
Yeah.
gave it out on one event and they just forgot about it forever.
You gotta
think
buy it
everyone
with
else forgot about it
Stardust.
too.
You gotta buy it with Stardust now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can, but like in the event, right? They gave it like
Yeah.
one time.
Yeah, I wish they
Well,
would
I
give
don't
us
think
more.
they forgot it. I think they showed player that this thing exists, and they were
Yeah,
like,
and then
"Nice."
you just
I
let it go
Stardust.
forever.
I forgot that existed.
Hey, Teten, someone's asking you a question here. Why do you
What's up?
belittle Zhao so much?
'Cause
Lol.
he's small.
Because
I
he's
belittle him
small,
because
he's a
he is a
midget.
little.
He doesn't like his own
Wait, what's that
showcasing
word
game.
mean? What does below word mean?
Why don't you like
Talk
Zhao?
down on. Why don't you like Zhao? Yeah.
About
I don't. What? I never said I don't like Chao. Okay, I
Wait.
somewhat don't like Chao. My only
I never said I
Nice.
don't like him, but I don't like him.
my current problem of Xiao is that he doesn't really work with a lot of support, and potentially probably the case in the future as well. That means his value is probably going to be one of the fastest of in terms of what you call it, diminishing. I don't remember what the word deprecating. I don't know what the word here is, but his value is going to go down the fastest of all the characters. What I believe,
Why?
because he doesn't work. The chances of him working with a future character is not very high.
Why?
Because
But does he need to work with future characters?
I think
I
he's
mean,
saying that
I would
the
argue one of
ceiling for
Zhao's
Zhao
strengths is that
comp-
the only thing he needs is a sucrose.
the ceiling for Zhao's teams isn't going up because the odds that another character interacts with him in a meaningful way is fairly low, and other units, on the other hand, are getting better and better units and supports and stuff like that. Like, what are the odds something supports Eula better than Zhao, right?
I think there's a
I mean,
counter-argument
you could
to
make the
that
same
that's-
argument for like any pyro.
Yeah,
unit,
yeah,
though.
I'm
What's
just- I'm
the
not-
chance we're getting a better Xingqiu?
I'm not saying I'm bought
right,
into it.
I
I'm
think
just
that's
explaining.
actually the counter.
that's not true though. That's not true. Though. We got to
Just because it, like, right now he doesn't work with many units, but that also means that if a unit works with him, even if it's not very good, it's going to increase his ceiling. If we get a unit like Xingqiu, but just worse, it's also going to work with a lot of pyro units, but it won't increase their ceiling. So, like, I don't really agree.
Future prediction and
I
dreaming
guess it
is
just
hard.
depends. It depends
Yeah.
on what. Yeah, we can't predict it.
I mean, we can't really control this. It's MiHoYo. It's
You-
not our, within our power to know what's gonna happen. Several months down.
Sus.
Yeah, I mean, there's an argument to be made for, well, if they power creep in the future, then blah blah blah. These characters, then like
Sure.
these characters that scale well, like Child or whatnot, that scale
Guess
well with
what,
other
okay?
units,
Xiao
would be
don't
good.
work with
That's,
Badro.
that's
I'm
Fair, but
mainly
I also
thinking of
don't
they're gonna
think-
feature creep than power creep though. It's
Yeah,
like, it
likewise,
doesn't matter if
that-
the character has like less number as long as they have like a boatload of
new-
utility
They're
or
doing
effects
such a
on their
good
Puffed
kit.
off
Yeah.
Raiden.
Yeah, but like they're doing such a good job controlling that, I think. Right, like
Mm.
you look at like the strongest teams in the game, and some of them have new unit, but then you also have like teams that are just like Taser, right?
I mean-
Taser is still one of the strongest teams in the game, and it's literally only 4-star units that were here in 1.0.
It's
I
pretty.
kind of want them to do more stupid character builds or character design though.
Yeah, it's pretty. I,
mean,
think it's pretty easy for them to
working in-
design something that isn't power creep. Like they could make something like so incredibly niche that it only buffs like maybe one character that isn't used that often, right? Like they could conceivably design a character that just makes Xinyan like really fucking good for no like when your character is
my.
afflicted by a pyro shield, you get like a boatload of like I think it can happen, and I think
That's
they're
just-
They
kind
could make
of.
a character that makes
Albedo with Soma.
amber vapor or amber melts
and
insanely good. Or
I
something.
think they're like more than open to it because Sara exists already. Like they will make units that are like extremely niche if they want to just buff
I mean, if
like
we
any
look at,
random
like,
character.
if we look at just like the past evidence we have so far, like what Code's saying, right now they're really just feature creeping. At the end of the day, at least in terms of 4-star units, the absolute best ones we have were all at launch. Like Xingqiu, Bennett, and Sucrose and Xiangling were all here at launch, and we haven't gotten anything 4-star wise at least that has even come close to what they add to teams, except for I guess Kazuha and Venti.
I mean, I
In
would
terms of
argue.
Sucrose.
I would argue Bennett and Xingqiu are just the best 2 units in the game, and nothing.
I agreed, but-
Yeah,
Well,
I think it's better if they
Xingqiu
go on
requires
this
a-
way though. It's like
Oh, I agree. Yeah, I'm
they're
happy it's
moving
going this
away
way.
from making all universal characters to
Mhm.
more niche character, which is a better design for a gacha game. I feel.
Okay, but like, why are they making the
Makes more
abyss so
money.
hard? Spoach.
True.
Like,
Yeah,
like,
listen.
like I get in Honkai, like, you get power crept like like every fucking month. You got a fucking new patch of Honkai means your wallet is emptied out for the month. Okay, but like, they have like stuff to actually do with their new toys, okay? But like,
Yeah,
why
they have content.
Dude,
Holy
why,
shit!
Why is the
Not
Abyss?
bad.
Why is it just the Abyss? Why is it just the 4 floors? And then why do we literally get nothing for it? There's no replay value at all other than like something that's for yourself. It's just, I don't know, it's so confusing.
No, you play Genshin to walk around the open world. Yeah, that's MiHoYo's idea right now.
I love picking up blooms.
Dude,
I
I
heckin'
love running
love
around the map.
blooms.
Like right now, you know what I've been doing for the whole podcast?
What?
I've pressed F1, gone to enemies, sorted. I went to I clicked on Fatui sits in mage. I pressed navigate and I cleared out my map. And I did that for like over half the enemies.
You
I'm
know
having
how
so
I
much
know that you're
fun.
not playing the game the way MiHoYo intended, Zarjeff? Because you didn't have the map memorized.
Oh yeah.
If you were
Lol.
playing the
Imagine
game the
not
way MiHoYo
having the map
intended, you would know where
memorized.
everything is
Lol.
already.
Yeah, watching OkCode stream, you're just walking around picking up butterfly.
I've done this for so long.
Bad chest,
Lol.
I arrive.
And on the podcast recording, we're just gonna watch me doing weird comps in Abyss 12-3 9-star cleric.
Very
There's a
good.
wide bad chest. But
Do you agree that it's better to have 5 stars better than 4 stars? I don't think it matters. I think 5
Doesn't
stars get
matter.
more creative freedom with their constellations and like their scope. Like they get to do cooler things, but that doesn't
What
mean
do
that
you
they're
mean?
automatically more powerful.
Huh? I mean, the 5-star characters are more boring than the 4-star characters, no? Look at all the characters we got in Inazuma. Press E to put something on the field. Press L to do more normal attack damage.
Yeah, but I don't. Could you imagine a unit like Zhao or Raiden as like a 4-star? I think the 4 stars are like relegated into being just.
I mean, they're gonna be weaker, yeah, but I'm saying like a
Oh
lot
no
of
no
the
no! I'm not
4
saying
stars
that
have
the
better
4 stars are
gameplay.
weaker. No, they're not weaker. They're just their scope and like their design potential is just more limited. I think that's like the
Yeah.
only difference. I
Man,
mean,
whenever I talk about the subject, my chat just mauls.
Lol, really?
Yeah, because like I talk about it so many times. I feel like the Inazuma
you
5
just, like,
stars, they got really
underachieved.
lazy about it.
Okay, but
Gaming.
code. You have to understand. Sure, they might do that for Yoimiya. They actually switched around the formula, and instead of giving her something she puts on the field on her E and a normal attack buff on her burst, they gave her something she puts on the field with her burst and a normal
God,
attack
you're
buff
right.
with her E.
True, yeah, they flipped the ability
They
around.
flipped the
yeah.
formula around.
Oh
It's
my
a
god.
completely different gameplay
It's
loop.
new character, yes.
My god, you're right.
expectations subverted.
I don't know though. I feel like Sayu's role and then Sarah planting bombs and stuff, those were like cool ideas. I feel like they're just testing all the ideas and, interesting gameplay on 4-star character and just sticking to what works for 5 stars so they can sell them.
Oh yeah, 5 stars are definitely either hotter or like just cooler in general, like the voice actor and like all that stuff. I wouldn't disagree.
I think right, the original question was like, is it okay for 4 stars to be as strong as 5? What was the original
BRB gotta pee.
Let me see what the original question. Do you agree that it's better to have 5 stars be better than 4 stars?
Okay, yeah. So like I don't think it's better in any way, right? The only way you could make it better, quote unquote better, is that wow, now you have to spend more money to have the better characters, right? And if you think that's a good thing because you think MiHoYo deserves more money, then all the power to you, but I would disagree. I think it's better for the power level between the 4 stars and 5 stars, at least for the players. I think it's better if that power difference is small or even in existence.
Yeah, but this is the fact that Genshin is a gacha game, right? There comes like an expectations that a higher rarity character should be stronger, yeah?
Yeah, there is that expectation, and a lot of people expect it to, but I
Yeah.
do think it's better if it's not the case.
I don't
It's
know. I think
better. Of
I've
course,
played-
it's better that if it's not, but it's not beneficial for the company, no?
I've played plenty of
can
games
be.
where like in gachas, like yeah, the higher rated units are like better if you spend money for it, but like even in Azure Lane, like your purple units like typically are way easier to cure out, way easier to actually use, and way easier to like get anything done with them. And like the 5 stars are just kind of like hot. That's it.
Oh my.
I mean, I think
Azure
it's a
Lane
lot
is
of,
also
like,
just Coomer Lane, so.
Okay.
Jesus Christ. Epic 7 does it really well though.
I
Every
think
meta
it's the
add characters,
McDonald's
it's just
formula.
husbando and cock characters, and all the waifus are just there to look nice.
Yeah,
If you
I
want to
think
play
I'm
meta,
act-
your team is full
it's
of
the
cock
McDonald's
characters.
formula where having those 4 stars that are strong makes the game more popular, and having the game be more popular means more people will spend.
Yeah.
Instead of
Right.
just having
Instead of just going
everything.
for
Yeah, it's the
power
gacha
based
game
on
argument
spending.
again, right? 'Cause,
Yeah,
like,
I'm sure.
if someone else looks inside and go like, "Hey, this gacha game, you can play the game with 4-star. It's free to play friendly." That's a selling point.
I mean,
It is, yeah.
the
Introduce new
gacha
players to the
culture
game.
in Japan, for example, is extremely like skewed towards the waifu and stuff. They literally do not give a fuck about like meta or anything like that, like in general. So like, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but like, there's like a breakdown of like Miyagi's finances or something about Genshin. It's like the player base in Japan is like smaller than like any other region. It's like 6% or something, but they make like 18% of the revenue or something crazy like
Holy
that.
shit.
Mm,
It's so
this is more
funny.
of like
It's
the
so funny.
cultural norm thingy, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's normal to
The-
spend money
yeah.
in, like, for example, a lot of Korean games. Like, spending money in Korean MMOs is just kind of like normal and to be expected, even.
Yeah, the
It's how
expectation
you
for the money is
perceive
pretty different.
spending money in video games, yeah.
Mm-hmm. The gacha culture, specifically in Asia, is like much more. It's pretty normal to literally just like say, like the meme of like food is optional, like just eat ramen.
Yeah.
Like they actually like some people do that, like just to play their gacha
Mm.
game. I don't think it's normal, but like
It's
it's
not
like it's
normal, but
it's
it's
like
more.
it's a stereotype
accepted, I guess,
that's
I don't
born
know.
out of like real people, like that people will do
Mm.
that. Let's see.
As much as I want to shit on Genshin all the time, I gotta say it has a selling point.
Yeah,
I've looked
yeah.
at Tower of Fantasy, I've looked at Blue Protocol, and it's hilarious if you try to play them. Also, Tower of Fantasy, I don't want to shit on the company, but like, holy shit, on the newest trailer, they had to issue an apology for using Honkai Impact assets on their trailer.
Oh my god.
It was
Oh,
amazing.
Oh my god.
It was hilarious, but holy.
Jesus. Okay, let's see. Another question. What are your thoughts on Venti being a must-pull unit when Sucrose and Kazuha exist? Venti is the king in AoE situations, but Sucrose and Kazuha also have CC potential, even if it's not as good as Venti's. Venti's still
That's
very
like-
strong, but putting him as a sole must-pull unit is a bit scuffed, in my opinion. Questions
Yeah,
to
that's
everyone
like
else, since
perception
I've
again,
already
no?
heard Zajiv's take on it.
God damn it.
It's more or less perception again, right? He's an Archon, he's a 5-star. So people just look at Archon and 5-star and go like, yeah, that's the best one.
My
And that's
opinion's
how the
pretty much
game
the same as
gets put
Zajev's
in.
on this one.
Mhm.
Just because anytime there is a mob clearing floor on Abyss or any mob clearing content period, Venti just makes it so much easier. And being able to save 30 seconds on a half of the Abyss to give you 30 seconds on the other half is insanely valuable, and no other character in the game really does that. He does have that niche power
He's kind
level,
of
but that
4-head to
niche
play
power.
as well, right? Or 3
Yeah,
head,
he
I
just
don't know.
also you just press Q. Like you just
Yeah.
press EQ
just
and
to
swap.
clarify, must pull does like I don't like the term must pull, right? Because I know I know the person said they don't want to hear because they already heard my answer, but like the other people haven't, and I want to make it clear. I don't like the term must pull. I don't
Silence,
think it's a must pull.
Lol.
I think that the terminology of must pull is pretty harmful because it's gonna make people think, shit, I have to get this character, and if they don't have enough primo gems, it might make them spend, right?
Well, yeah, with the exception of Bennett, I agree.
Yeah, 'cause you can get
With the
Bennett
exception
without
of Bennett, I agree the term must pull is problematic unless you're talking about Bennett.
I think Bennett and Sing So, because they're 4-stars that are available through the Circulator shop, you can get them without spending. You can guarantee them without spending.
I've actually been thinking about this pretty recently because in other games, when we have things that are must pull or like directly in the forefront of the meta, like there's never been like a lack of other options that can kind of do what they do. But the point of it being at the top of the meta isn't always just like it's always the best damage or anything like that. It's just either it's so easily the top option because it's either brain dead to use and offers like almost top tier DPS for it. Like that's like why they're at the front. And I think like considering Venti in that territory of like, yeah, you know what? I'm pretty comfortable with saying that, you know, you don't have Venti, you should probably get one because it's if you have the primo for it or whatever, like you shouldn't feel bad about pulling on his banner because he definitely would be a unit I would consider like, yeah, you know what? He's a
In terms of
little
raw
cracked out
value
when he
for
is
a
good.
pull.
I think
Yeah.
it's more about like how much characters the gacha game has as well. If you're pulling example from that, because some gacha game that has like hundreds of character, there'll be so much that fulfill the same role. It doesn't matter who you pull.
Yeah, but like the thing is like it on the flip side is like if you always wait for something better, there will always be something better in a gacha
Yeah,
game.
the nature of a gacha game.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Like it's just one of those things that happens, but like for now, for the reasonable future, even if something comes out that makes Venti like or is like better than Venti, it's still Venti.
would you need the upgrade, right?
It's still Venti.
Maybe it's still Venti.
In some games, like maybe a weapon or like a stat builder or whatever is like the meta, but it might not be the best damage option. It's just there because it's super easy to use and it's, like I said earlier, good enough, right?
Ease of use, I think, plays a huge role though. It's like if you can play a not peaked team comp, but it's easier to function, I think something like that would be super popular.
The irony is how popular Kazuha is, despite the fact that he's actually not that easy to use to maximize his
think-
value.
I
But
mean,
Like, the thing about Kazuha is it's not linear. Like he starts like hard, and the better
True.
you are, the more he performs. Like it's
he still gets most of his value out very easily.
yeah.
you don't have to play
so-
perfectly to play him, basically.
Yeah, like Kazuha has his grouping, has his buff, has his all of his shit, and the only thing you can't access if you don't really like understand the game too well is like buffing more than one element. But you reach all of the other parts of his kit basically just by putting him on your team. When you compare him to Sucrose is like generally it takes a bit less to get all out of her than it would to like actually get the double twirl setups on Kazuha. But in order to get that output out of her that you get out of Kazuha, if you're not like if you don't know everything, it takes you more. It takes you a bit more, right? You have to position yourself a bit better for your E, right? Because your E is in front of you rather than around you. You have to like position yourself in the right position, and because of auto targeting, a lot of people are gonna not be used to that. Well, Kazuha is just you go where you want the middle to be, right? It's very simple. And then her burst can screw over certain certain things you want to do by knocking enemies up. Right? Like she has a bit more nuance in like the midpoint between like completely brainless play and actually like try-harding.
This is probably not gonna be too theory-crafty, but the aesthetic and feel of when you use a character really pulls people to play them.
Oh yeah,
Like
That's
the
a
sound
really
of
fair
animation.
point, though.
Yeah.
Kazuha feels so good to play.
It's more because if we're talking about why people play certain character, so Kazuha, that's why. Yeah, Kazuha got weird, right? Like before Kazuha release on every media, it's like saying Kazuha is gonna be weaker Venti, yada yada yada, and he comes out to be quite decent himself. And then an overhype train kicks in where it just punches popularity so high. Now it's super hard to change anyone's opinion of him.
Yup.
It's really hard to stay grounded with these kinds of things. Like it because like how do you justify one unit being rated over another or anything like that? Even if you do like the math or whatever, people are gonna berate you for it. Like why would you consider only
I mean,
like the
step
math
one,
and
you have to
stuff,
have
right?
both characters in question, right? And most people don't have every option out there. And if they have one option or the other, most likely they'll pick the option that they own, the argument that supports
Especially
that
if it's the
option.
option they spend money on.
Yeah.
Step 1, be a whale.
Oh yeah. Step 1, be a whale.
Just have every character.
Just
So,
have
yeah,
every
It's
character,
easy.
Easy.
or just always pull them. Don't lose.
Stop losing 50-50s.
Every
But
pull
yeah.
you don't take is every 5-star you might miss.
Oh my god.
Lol.
Pull now.
Oh, no.
Spoken like a true whale.
I do think that like feeling does play a super large role in like so much of like Genshin stuff.
Mm.
Even like in theory crafting, I guess like circles, I guess. Feeling does play a huge role just because theory crafting is super difficult actually. Like if you want to be accurate in your comparisons of like X character is better than Y character, there's so much math that you need to do. You have to do like team damage comparisons because some characters scale better with buffs than others. You have to do you have to compare their support value versus other things, which means that you need to be looking at how well they supported the unit. You need to be looking at like their buff up times if they take advantage of buffs. There's just so many things that you need to do, which means that a lot of people who are just like not good, I guess, is how I'd put it at theory crafting, they'll just use feeling in order to make a lot of comparisons.
I love fields crafting.
I mean, even just like math aside, simply understanding the full mechanics of how a full team comp works. You have how character 1 interacts with every single character on your team, how character 2 interacts with every single character, etc., etc. And then each of the characters has normal attacks, elemental skill, and ultimate, as well as 2 passives that can either be unique mechanics or augment those. And then on top of that, you have constellations, and then all of that entire web of interactions. Simply understanding that alone is definitely a challenge, and something that most people probably aren't equipped to do or aren't educated enough on the game mechanics to do. And that's even before we get to the math stage of trying to calculate all of those interactions.
Yeah. Theory crafting is hard, and people, because it's hard, people are kind of bad at it sometimes.
LOL.
That's all you need to know.
You be hard. Hard.
Have you ever tried just making it not hard though, Art?
You want to answer a meme question someone asked on my chat?
That's
or-
fine, yeah.
Sure, go for it.
Yeah, someone says, can you run 4 Shimenawa sacrificial sword D-loop?
I mean,
Wait, if
sure.
you're using sacrificial, why would you use Shimeno at that point? Just go for Thundering Fury. Or because you want skill resets, right? So just use Thundering Fury. 4 TFD.
No, they just want to not have
Ooh.
energy.
That
More
I think
normal
that's the-
attack damage D-loop.
Okay,
That's the
actually,
mage method.
can we take a second to just appreciate the existence of the Thundering Fury set and how much it makes, like how much
Oh,
more
no,
fun it
the
makes
preacher.
thinking about new units?
how much
Salesman.
more how much
TF
it benefits
salesman.
everyone that's not Electro.
Mm. The
And how,
electro set that doesn't
how it
benefit
makes
Electro.
Kazuha so insane.
Mm.
And he's not even triggering any of it.
Oh
I love
my.
it so much, dude. I love it. Honestly, literally, the only thing that excites me about Cryo and Pyro characters that are announced is the thought that they might work with the TF set.
Lol.
Mhm.
You know, Shenhei's been announced. I hope she works with the TF set.
Oh no.
Oh my.
That's all I care about.
EF Shenhe, that would be hilarious.
I don't. Yeah. Talking about artifacts set. Now I know it's a meme and all, but I'm pretty sure they could have just trimmed down a lot of text on the glam set.
Oh yeah.
They could have.
Because like they never explained in-depth info on artifact set before. They just kind of let people figure out themselves, and now they just unload a paragraph here.
Actually, is it also that like way too dank in the original? I mean, I assume the original is the Chinese text, right? Is
I
it
think
that
so,
way
yeah.
too dank in the Chinese text
I
as
have
well?
no idea. I think it's pretty long though.
I can
Hmm.
look it up. Let's see.
I mean, I feel like it's a lot easier if they just say 90% of your healing is accumulated as damage, physical damage. Max 30k, 3.5-second cooldown. And they don't have to they don't have to explain how the damage works because people can figure it out. Because from what I see, people look at this set and they're not even bothering reading it. They just ask other content creator, "Hey, how does this set works anyway?" So I don't think this missed the mark. Whatever they're aiming for here.
Yeah, I looked at the Chinese. It's pretty dank as well.
Oh god.
So, yeah.
All right.
I like it that they're making more unique artifact set like this though.
Mhm.
We're moving forward. Maybe one day Lava Walker and Thunder Suda will rise again.
LOL.
Honestly, I'm not happy with this set.
You know, like
Unironically. I like the set, but I'm not happy with what it means. Because them converting overhealing and just healing in general to damage means that they're not intending on making healing actually useful. And that means that they're just gonna stick to timed content forever.
Yeah, that
Right.
and because I also kind of think about, I don't think a purely defensive healer is that, for gameplay wise, a purely defensive healer isn't too fun to play, right? Healing and shielding and defending, I kind of like, the Noel passive where if your ally falls below 30% health, Noel puts a shield on your ally, and the devotion passive, right? No one really uses it, but it's there. It's more of like the clutch moment or the clutch factor of barely healing enough to stay alive versus always staying full health. And for the gameplay feel wise, barely staying alive to finish a fight feels a lot nicer than always being full health. So them converting to more aggressive healers in the future may be good. But yeah, time gating, timer content, as you said,
Yeah, like
might be how they're doing it.
yeah, like I understand that it's more fun to play, but it worries me because exactly right. It means that they're gonna stick to time
Yeah, they're gonna
gating.
stick
'Cause
to time content.
if they're planning on making non-time gated content, if they're planning on making stuff that isn't just a DPS check, why would they make this set?
Exactly.
It wouldn't
Yeah.
make any sense.
Yeah. It's
So it
more
disappoints me.
fun casually to have more aggressive and offensive healer, but in a way, it just kind of spells that Genshin will just be forever a timer DPS check.
Give me a healer that gives me infinite interrupt resistance. I'll use them every single time, everywhere. One of the
Yeah,
reasons
what do you
why
guys
Raiden
think
feels
about,
so
like,
good is
Elliot's
because she
stuff?
literally cannot get stunned or like anything when she's in her Q or in her burst.
Interrupt resistance, huh? I was thinking about like a weird ability. So like, imagine this character applying a debuff to the enemy that makes the next 5 second all attacks will crit on them. But like the crit deals like 30% less damage or some shit. I don't know.
Huh.
So
That
just
would be
build all
interesting.
characters on your team, just full crit damage. I
That
kind
would
of
be
want
interesting.
characters in Genshin that just changes how people play the game, really. I want them to be more crazy about their game design, but they're treading a very careful line right now.
Yeah, I mean, when you have a product that makes you $1 billion, why change it?
Yeah.
But
Just give
I mean,
people
if you
the bare
want,
minimum of rewards, yeah. Genshin will probably do that for a while. They'll just keep giving bare minimum amount of content or rewards. And whenever they introduce even the slightest quality of life changes, everyone will just jump on their side and praise them to be the most generous company ever. And
Lol.
this is my experience from playing gacha game. It happens so many times already. I'm like,
Lol.
okay.
Oh my
It's a
god, thank you
trend.
for giving us the most basic of utility updates. Oh my god, they really listen
Yes.
to the community, guys.
Oh damn, I can put Paimon on the teapot.
They really do care.
I'm really excited every patch to plant some trees and flowers to get a flower pot on my teapot, and now I have a fucking snowman. Hell
I
yeah!
love waiting every 2 weeks for the Abyss. For only to be the same Abyss I did last time. Wow.
all right,
Is that
I'm
it?
gonna have to
The
hop off
breast
because I have to
size.
do finals.
Mm-hmm.
Finals
Bye,
everything for
Hazel.
me. Yeah.
Mm,
Bye,
Goodbye.
Hazel.
Goodbye.
I will try and schedule the next podcast today as well, so we can avoid we can avoid confusions.
Yep.
But yeah,
I
I'll
gotta get
send
my
that link out
blood
soon.
drawn later. God. Is
I'm
there a
gonna go rest
specific
today, I
place to find
guess.
the top tier team compositions together? No, not yet. Not
Not
yet.
yet. Goodbye.
Not yet.
We're actively arguing about that literally all the fucking time in KQM.
Lol.
But if you want bad advice, just go to twitch.tv/okcode and I'll show you everything you should not do in Genshin. Hell yeah. Shameless, let's go.